Supercars Championship. It's the Gold Coast 300 and sort of real life streets of service paradise. Lucky for some of the heavy hitters. The Australian Supercars Championship. There being any such big name casualties tonight. Stairs and Madbird in the box for you tonight. Still a bit of a high after the success of the Bathurst 2000, but tonight presents a very different challenge.
Very much so. From the sloping craziness that is Mount Panorama to the tight wall enclosed confines of Gold Coast. Not one of my favourite tracks, but definitely a very dramatic track. I'm very much looking forward to this one, Stairs.
Absolutely. We have a bit of mic audio problems there, so we'll just move over to this microphone so you can hear me a little bit better. Just while we get that rectified, let's quickly go over the drivers' points with the championship all but wrapped up for Kurt Stenberg. No Jake Maloney and Ethan Warren there as far as we've seen so far, so those two were on a bit of a charge. Sean Allen is there to try and keep the championship alive though, and he currently sits roughly 400 points behind Kurt Stenberg. After that drop round, still leading by the thick end of 300 points is Kurt Stenberg with just 600 points on offer after tonight. Brody Steen in 5th place, Zach Baker in 6th place. He and David Nenadic having a fantastic outing last time in Bathurst. Colin Warwick in 7th, Will Devonish in 8th, Jay Borg is 9th, and David Nenadic in 10th.
Absolutely, and we'll have a quick look here at the team points as well. So, we have got Race on Oz Racing for Sean Allen and Brody Steen clearly in the lead there by about 1,300 points, which is bloody ridiculous over ZB Racing, who have taken 2nd place for Zach Baker and David Nenadic. Astro Altus Esports currently up in 3rd place. War Race Engineering for Will Devonish and Ozrob in 4th. Followed by Trans Tasman Racing number 1 with 2,750 points. Followed by Stealth Penrite Racing, that would be Colin Warwick's team, and the other Trans Tasman Racing, which I believe is Jake Maloney, leading the Monster Energy Ford Mustang. JMSR in 9th, and RSM Racing in 10th. Stairs.
Fantastic. So it appears as though my mic audio has returned. So if you are watching in the live chat, do chat to us during the race. We like the engagement, and of course, if there is any technical issues, do alert them to us. Now, we've got actually no cars on track right now. We did have a moment ago, but the reason we don't is because we're about to get set on qualifying. So this will be a 10-minute qualifying session to determine the order for the shootout.
Quite a short, and you can see they're all hopping out into the pit lane. Or you can't actually, it's hidden behind our nice graphic there. They are all hopping out into the pit lane ready to go because 10 minutes is quite a short qualifying session length. They'd be lucky to get 7 or 8 laps in, including their out lap, with a rough lap time of about 1 minute 10 around here, with the fastest lap that we've seen in practice from Thomas McMillan, a 1:10.444, I believe, being the fastest. Quite a bit faster than we saw in the Super 2 race, which I must say, commentated admirably well by Kurt Stenberg.
Oh, I loved it.
It was
terrific stuff right there.
Bloody entertaining.
Kurt Stenberg, Thomas McMillan, and Ethan Warren. Colin Warwick doing a fantastic job there. Fastest lap in the qualifying pole time for the Super 2 race, as David Nenadic gets right up on the curb there, straight out of the pits on his outlap, was a 1:11.6. That was set by Will Devonish, though, who does normally run in this level, and he was thick end of 2 seconds a lap faster than anyone else in that Super 2 race.
Yeah, it was a little bit, the difference between the two classes, or the two, I guess classes is the right word, the two levels of competition, was on display, let's call it, with that performance. He absolutely blitzed the regular Super 2 runners, did Will Devonish.
So we're looking right now at David Nenadic, and the reason we're looking at him is because he was the first man out of the pit lane. We currently have all but 2 of the cars in the server on the track, and the 2 cars who are, in fact, one of them has just made their way onto the track, and that's Sean Allen. So that just leaves Zach Baker, teammate of the man you're looking at currently, who isn't on the racetrack. So let's have a look at David Nenadic as he comes across the line to start this first lap of the qualifying session. We'll show you just how tricky this Surface Paradise racetrack is. You've got to be very, very careful on these curbs. They can put you up on two wheels just like that and spit you out into the wall. David was a little bit lucky there, braking down into the hairpin at turn 4. And turn 5 is one of those, Martin Brundle says it doesn't actually exist kind of corners, as it isn't really one that you need to brake for. And down this very curved straight, got the same shape as a banana, into the back chicane, slam onto those curbs and try and control the car through there. David just having to wait a tad before getting his car back righted before he could slam his foot down to the firewall and down to turn 11, another tricky braking zone. And this is a little bit similar to the staircase section in Adelaide, as you can see them go through the left and right 90-degree corners up to the final corner now, turns 14 and 15. Very, very tricky traction zone, and very, very important to get this right if you want to have any chance of overtaking down into turn 1. And that's a lap of Surface Paradise.
Yeah, it's very well done there, Stairs. It's very tight, and those curbs can be absolutely deadly if you cop too much of it, which we saw David Nadovich do on his outlap, or on his hot lap rather. He's managed to avoid it there, and we've switched now to Thomas McMillan, who was our fastest in practice, and he is currently our fastest in qualifying with a 1:11.2, 0.8 of a second faster than Colin Warwick, who we didn't see, but and he's spun it in the plebs.
Yeah, that'll be an in lap.
That will be. I've noticed Colin Warwick has changed his livery for this race, Stairs. It's a Kiss-inspired livery by the looks of it.
Yeah, they do actually copy the Erebus team in real life with the liveries that they run from one round to the next, and that was what Erebus ran during the real life Supercars Gold Coast 300, and so as such, that's what they're running today.
It's Larry, and that's about all I'll say about that.
Moving right along.
Moving right along. Sean Allen has banged in a lap that is good enough for seconds so far. David Nadovich has been relegated back down to 4th at this stage. Hashtag relegated. We've got Kurt Stenberg out in the pit lane, finally going out for his outlap.
Aidan Schultz goes 5th on his first flying lap, puts him safely in the 10 for now.
Decent effort there. We haven't seen him since Pukekohe, and
whoa!
I got a feeling that this lap will be a write-off. He did not attend for Bathurst, which is a damn shame, but looking for a strong return here at at the Gold Coast.
At the Gulf Coast. Well, we do go along the Gulf Coast Highway, which is also known as the start-finish straight. Colin Warwick going down the back straight right now as he goes past Aidan Schultz, who's on his in-lap, as we saw before. And that's how you ride the curbs there with Colin Warwick. That was a terrific effort from him. Just kept it off the curbs nicely. Well, just enough, rather, to maintain his speed, get the car back on its four wheels as quickly as he possibly could, and did a great job.
Absolutely, it's a balance. It's something that you need to balance. Is the words that I was trying to get out there. As Colin Warwick has a bit of a cloud of the wall. You gotta straight line the chicanes as much as humanly possible. But if you do it too much, A, you'll get a penalty, but B, you'll flip up onto the two wheels, and from there it's very easy to go all the way over or straight into a wall. So you need to take just enough to keep the speed up through the corner, but not enough that it's going to unsettle you too much.
Kurt Stenberg currently in the drop zone. He hasn't actually set a time yet. We've had 10 times in, and Thomas Pauls isn't really representative. He's done a 1:29.7, so that's some 18 seconds off the time set by Thomas McMillan. Kurt
Stenberg there going through the first chicane was about as much on the edge as you'd want to be. It looked like he just scraped the wall on two wheels, but managed to keep it all nice and tidy. So that's and speaking of nice and tidy, that isn't it. He's through the back chicanes of turn 6 through 10. He's shoved it into the wall. He is down by about 5/10 at the moment, which would, if he manages to pull off this lap, would still be good enough for third, because Thomas McMillan's lap is apparently that good. He's flinging it around these corners, car sliding all over the place, but he'll probably be safely in the top 10. considering that Thomas Paul was set a time about 18 seconds slower than Thomas McMillan's time, so he's not in any danger of falling behind Thomas Paul.
Could be a red letter day for Kurt Stenberg. He could make himself very much the man to beat in the championship. Well, he already is the man to beat in the championship, Madbird, but he's just gone third on that lap, and that should put him quite safely in the top 10 for now. So that relegates Thomas Paul into the drop zone, and he is the only man in 11th, 12th and 13th who's actually set a time. Jack Handel's currently on a lap, so we'll see if we can pick him up.
What's there's a
He's not on a lap, beg your pardon. He must have aborted that one.
There's some slogan on those I keep saying Gulf Coast, on those Gold Coast signs going across the track, saying something known for something.
Oh, we'll have to pick that up when we can find it.
Wondering what Gold Coast is known for other than methamphetamine.
How's that go?
Methamphetamine?
I know they're known for claiming to have...
famous for fun. Sorry.
Oh, yes.
Just cut across,
now that we've solved that problem, my joke is really irrelevant, but I know they're known for lying about their weather. Beautiful one day, perfect the next. My arse. But we'll move right along from that.
Swiftly along.
So David Nedadic, he's currently sat in 4th, and he's on a hot streak of form right now. I'm surprised we haven't seen his teammate Zach Baker out, though. He's been in the pits for this entire session and hasn't shown any inkling of wanting to be in the top 10 so far. I wonder if he's going to get some pizza for his girlfriend. We've only got 1:45 left in this session.
It's gone bloody quick. If he's got any chance of making a lap, he's going to have to leave the pits right about now, and he is not doing so. So
Thomas Paul's just about to finish a lap, so let's see if that drops him or jumps him up into the top 10. And it does.
Well, it truly does. So Turmo has now been dropped to 11th behind about it. Exactly.
Oh,
whoa,
gracious me.
My goodness.
That's David Nedadic's ex-car.
That'd throw off Thomas Paul's entrance to his next hot lap. RSM Latino exactly 1/10 of a second faster than Turmo at the moment.
And Turmo's in the pit lane, so he's got to get out now. No, he's not going to improve.
No,
that's it. That's our top 10, ladies and gentlemen. That was pretty simple, wasn't it?
Yeah, unless there's someone in the... Jack Handel could still... Whoa, okay. I'd take back what I was about to say, that Jack Handel could still give himself a chance to get into the top 10, because he had an almighty moment. I'm not sure if it was some lag or something.
Yeah, it did look like lag, didn't it?
Coming out of the... Yeah, he just sort of skates across and then... What is happening, ladies and gentlemen? That car is not acting as it should.
It was one of our favourite liveries from Bathurst, wasn't it? That DuPont car.
Absolutely.
From Jack Handel.
Good little flick spin, but you don't. Unfortunately, that doesn't count towards a. That doesn't count towards a berth in the top 10.
No, gets 10 from the Russian judge though.
Absolutely.
Thomas Paul's gone third on that subsequent lap, so he wasn't too distracted by Jack Handel's antics in front of him. Certainly not in that first second. He's going again because there's 3 seconds left in the session, and he has the ability to do so if he does have the fuel.
Absolutely. It looks as if Turmo's jumped up into 10th. So who is...
Oh, goodness gracious.
We've lost
Someone's
somebody.
jumped out. Yes, because there are now only 13 cars. So I wonder now if the car that dropped out will then promote Turmo into the top 10 shootout.
Well, that's what's currently happened. So I suppose if whoever it is who dropped out is not able to get back in time, then that is exactly what will perspire?
Conspire?
Conspire?
Conspire's not the word, is it?
There's a word.
Transpire is the word.
Transpire. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's a good thing we're not trying
to
commentate on a race.
Yeah, I definitely don't read a lot.
Yeah. We'll move swiftly along. He's back, whoever it is.
Terrible grasp of the English language.
Brody Steen? No, anyway.
Thomas Paul, perhaps.
Yes, because RSM Latino is back in 10th, and Turmo is back out of the 10. So that is our top 10.
That was a brief moment of joy for Turmo that's been swiftly ripped away.
Well, maybe he's just resetting his game a la Rambo, which is a reference that most of our viewers, if not all of them, will not understand. Driver who, well, if you are watching Rambo, we love you dearly, but
please come along.
He restarted his computer after, blinking his eyes basically to stop game from crashing on him.
Which I mean, in fairness, Automobilista is a finicky beast, but I feel like restarting after every session is a little bit of overkill. And you know, how's your wife? How's kids?
What was the quote that you used in Bathurst? Say what you like about Brazilians, they can't make a game.
It's very accurate. They might know how to wax a vagina, but they don't know how to program a racing simulator.
Gee, I'm regretting bringing that one back up.
That said, it does the job, and we, as much as but mostly I complain about it, it does the job pretty well, and we get a absolute lot of fun out of it. So really, I can't complain that much, but it doesn't stop me.
And why would it?
Exactly.
So RSM Latino will be the first driver in this shootout.
Unsung hero of the Bathurst 1000, I think, Stairs. Did the entire thing solo from start to finish, all six and a bit hours of it, Stairs.
Unbelievable, that. And everyone in this race todayd's doing the full 300 kilometres solo, so I wonder if that does give him some kind of advantage today.
It's, it's not, I mean, it's only about, just over an hour or thereabouts.
Probably closer to 2, I'd say.
Probably closer to 2. I took a shot in the dark because I honestly had no idea. It's
102 laps and it's about a minute 10 lap.
10, and then plus pit stops, probably around 2. 2 hours of no runoff and very little margin for error, which Xeris wouldn't be happy with. Another ARW reference there. That's going to be incredibly stressful in the long run. So I imagine that we will have at least a few of our runners having little lapses in concentration, which lead to big lapses in their car's integrity against walls, which was an odd way of saying they'll crash a lot. But RSM Latino, as we said, the entire Bathurst by himself, which and no huge moments that we saw. He didn't. He ended up, I think, a lap or two down, but that's more due to the incredible pace of the guys at the front rather than his particular slowness. Just very consistent. It was a joy to behold.
That it was. So the lap time he's set to get into the shootout isn't on the piece of paper that I've just printed out. So we've got no actual point of reference in that regard, but nonetheless, he's about to start his lap, and he will certainly put us in no doubt of what the lap time in the shootout is once he finishes that particular lap and it comes up on our screen.
Very, very well said. I'm looking at this beautiful piece of paper that you've printed out. Best lap gap, not applicable.
I think it's still loading. So
some things just don't work out.
That information coming from liveraces.com or rsmclanau.liveraces is the link that you follow, and you'll get all the live racing and results sheets without lap times on them that we get access to, and they are an invaluable all jokes aside, an invaluable source for live timing.
Absolutely, yeah. I would whenever we have issues with live races, I feel like our commentary suffers a little bit because it's so. It's even just looking across and being able to see where the close battles are on track, so you can hop through and find them. Very useful, and you know, sector times and lap times, it all gives you stuff to waffle on about. RSM Latino's just finished his lap.
It's quick, isn't it?
Or about to. A 1:13.827. So he is our first hot lap of the session thus far. I believe Brody Steen, next man out for Race on Oz Racing. He is currently going through the steps, the staircase, as you called it.
Yes, well, the staircase is what they actually refer to it in Adelaide. I don't know if I've actually ever heard turn 12, 13, and or turn 11, 12, and 13 referred to as the staircase in Surface Paradise, but it is very similar, so I don't think too many people will be confused if we were to use that terminology.
No, and I mean it's a bit apt, I think. We've got Ace Dogboy in the chat saying this race will be ruined if a safety car comes out. If a safety car comes, full stop. Cough cough Super 2.
Yeah, it was quite a frantic race, that Super 2, wasn't it?
It was yes, interesting is the word.
Term, yeah.
And a difficult race to be serious about, I think, were the words Kurt Stenberg used in his post on Facebook, which glowing review. 5 and a bit tenths up, closer to 6 tenths up.
I'm surprised actually that Brody Steen was as low as that in the qualifying session to get into the shootout. So that was a bit unexpected from Brody. I feel like they underperformed just a little bit in Bathurst. I was expecting them to be a little bit higher up than they were.
Race on Oz.
Yeah, they ended up finishing 4th, which isn't a bad result. Brody Steen now coming to the line, and I wonder how much he will have improved there. A full second, 112.8. That's a damn good lap there from Brody Steen.
Sorry, you threw to me in the middle of a yawn.
Beg your pardon.
No. Absolutely my fault. Got Stephen Birchall in the Monster Mustang Racing number 16 car with that San Remo, not the pasta livery, which as a man who used to get copious amounts of free San Remo stairs...
Used to being the operative word there.
The golden days are long behind.
Aha, here we go.
As he begins his hot lap, and Stairs has found the lap times from qualifying.
They've loaded.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Oh, very messy through the first chicane there. Outbroke himself a little bit into the first part of it, and wasn't the best entry in the world, but he hasn't lost too much time by the looks of it. He continues on.
So Brody Steen improved on the time that he set in qualifying to get into the shootout. So Stephen Birchall, if he were to do the same, then he would have to do the same in order to beat Brody Steen, because these two were both in the 13s as Stephen Birchall rubs the wall there on the exit of the chicane, I should say, on the back straight. So Stephen Birchall, what does that say? Half a tenth, nearly a full tenth rather, down on the time set by Brody Steen. This is going to be mighty, mighty close, Madbird.
It will. He was about the same amount down in the first sector as well after that messy first chicane, so I reckon that he's...
that'll have done it.
Yeah, it's academic now.
Mirror's gone too, and that hurts his exit all the way down this straight. So Stephen Birchall, I wonder if he'll still be ahead of Iris Latino. Would have lost a lot of time with that rub at the wall. And
4 tenths.
Slots in almost exactly in between the two.
Stick Death 1980. Fantastic series of flash videos. Stick Death. Regardless, saying go Brody. Well done.
I didn't know what you were talking about.
Just apropos of nothing, I did enjoy those that early to mid 2000s trend of randomly horribly violent stick figure animations.
That is a blast from the past, if ever I've heard one.
Isn't it just? We've got Aiden Schultz out on track.
We do.
Coming across the line right about now.
Team 11, car number 11. Yeah. For a long time was 11th in the championship. I don't recall if he is now.
Let me have a quick little doodle look.
Oh, yeah? As...
Currently 14th. That's he needs to lift his game, because 11-11 in 11 would be incredibly happy for me.
I think he dropped a few spots after not taking part in the Bathurst 1000, unfortunately, so might have found himself up a few spots, though, considering that we only had, I think it was 11 finishes out of 13 starters, so there was a lot of points on offer, even if you came dead last in that race, given that there were 300 points on offer. Aiden Schultz isn't too far away, less than half a second. It's 1 and a bit tenths, and that was similar to the margin we saw with Stephen Birchall, but he threw it all away in the final part of the sector. Let's see how Aiden Schultz negotiates the staircase. Bit of a rub on the wall there on the exit of turn number 13. Down into the final corner now, and let's see how he gets the power down. It was a little bit wide of the apex, but you can get away with that if you carry enough speed through the mid-corner. Aiden Schultz comes to the line and sets himself a 1 minute 13.128. Good enough for second place.
Yeah, only about a tenth of a second faster than Steve Birchall, so it was quite close there in the end. But he has managed to hang on to that provisional second. Sean Allen, now the in this session at least, faster of the two, well, in the previous session at least, faster of the two Race on Oz racing guys. Had a bit of a look around their forums and website the other day. I didn't realise that was such a big deal, Race on Oz.
Yeah.
They've got their own merch and everything.
I do like their livery, that gold and silver. Just sets quite nicely. In fact, I've just noticed that they switched to the ZB this round. They were in the Nissan Altima in Bathurst and the FGX Falcon in rounds before that. So they're certainly whoring themselves out in terms of manufacture. And Sean Allen gets all up on 2 wheels in the first chicane. That would have cost him quite a bit of time.
Absolutely would have. He managed to keep his foot in it for the most part, but he would have had to have lifted out and counter-steered away from the wall a little bit to avoid.
He was still
horrible.
ahead. Look at
My
that.
goodness, he must have had a cracking first chicane apart from that.
Must have sent it into that chicane.
He's sending it into this one.
Ooh!
Rubs the wall again. We're seeing a lot of that so far this session. I believe they were 0.5 of a second up, so that is just the confidence through that back chicane. Turn 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 is if you can carry some extra speed through there, a lot of people are going to be tiptoeing. If you go balls out through there, then you will be picking up time in spades.
It's been a spectacular lap here from Sean Allen, although he gets a little bit wide through there and lights up the rear on the exit, but I don't think it's going to cost him provisional pole. Sean Allen, is he going to beat his teammate Brody Steen? One would think so. And
easily
1:11.9, 0.8 of a second he takes out of Brody Steen.
That's massive.
That is massive.
Absolutely massive. Xbox is huge. We're full
It's not the only thing that's huge. Jesus Christ. Sean Allen, well, that... Never met... I don't know why I brought that up. But just... Let's go on to David Nenadich.
Christ, these early 2000s references are kicking off.
They are.
Kicking off like a nun's breakfast.
Oh.
David Nenadich starts his hot lap. Stick Death 1980 saying, probs because Kelly sold out to Ford. It's very possible.
Oh, David up on 2 wheels! And the McLaughlin line straight into the wall!
Oh, it's gone.
Well, that's an FGX Falcon that is not going to set the fastest lap in this shootout. It's going to continue because he could still be ahead of RSM Latino. 1.8 seconds. He's right on the cusp.
If he manages to hold that disadvantage, let's say that 1.8 seconds, then he will slot into 4th.
He's very, very careful to avoid the curb, at least the middle one, through the back straight chicane.
Yes, but once bitten, twice shy.
Yeah,
as they say.
And he's dropped more time. 0.3 down on RSM now.
He's an incredibly shy boy as he's going through turns 13 and 14. Starting his run down the start-finish straight, and he's into the wall. He is. I don't think it's controversial to say he will provisionally be last.
No doubt that car was very heavily damaged from the knock with the wall that he had on the first corner.
Would expect so, and he slots into 6th.
14.527. That's he'll be disappointed with that. Fair to say.
That's and again, just to draw attention to the disparity between the two competition levels. Those were the race pace of the Super 2 guys, and that was David Nenadich after hitting a wall several times. So, just goes to show these guys are a bit of a step above, if that wasn't obvious.
That is an interesting point, actually. As we head on to championship leader Kurt Stenberg, will we see the first 1:10? We haven't actually got that close to him so far. We've been in the high 11s, and that was by far and away the fastest lap of this qualifying session. So, if anyone's got a 1:10 in him, you would expect it to be Kurt Stenberg.
Or possibly Thomas McMillan. We know he can be blisteringly quick when he manages to keep it out of the walls.
Oh, great line there from Kurt Stenberg. Up on 2 wheels, nearly did the whole ping-pong off the inside wall thing, but he's been rewarded for his bravery to the tune of 0.2 of a second. Look at that, back straight, all over the curbs, carrying a huge number of speeds through there.
An enormous amount of speeds.
He's going to be...
He's 0.8 up.
Yeah, he's not quite on target, is he? For that 1:10.
He would need to be... he'd need to grab a lot of time. He flings it through these right-hand corners, turns 13 and 14, you can see the back stepping out, but he manages to keep it grippy as he comes through the final corner onto the start-finish straight.
Good traction there.
Very good run out of the last corner. This is looking good. I don't think he's going to have it as a 2:10. He might do. He does.
Oh, he gets in there by 0.006 of a second. Kurt Stenberg is your provisional pole sitter.
Jesus wept. That is a 1:10.994, about as close as you can get without it being, 5 thousandths slower to being a 111. So very well done there from Kurt Stenberg.
It's been in good qualifying form lately, and pole position in the Bathurst 1000.
8/10 of a second faster than his qualifying time.
So that's a decent effort as well. He managed to do that again in Bathurst as well. So he's pretty good on one lap, is Kurt Stenberg, as we now turn our attention to Thomas Paul in that beautifully turned out MP Sim Sports FGX 4 Falcon.
I am a fan of this livery.
Me both.
It's it helps that I'm a Port fan, so that teal, silver, and black is good. He's only 0.02 of a second down on Kurt Stenberg through the first sector, so good run. He's going to have to be very confident through the chicane.
It's been a clean lap from him. He was actually very, very hesitant on those curbs. I think that might have cost him a little bit of time, but what he lost in time, he might have gained back a little bit. Oh no, I'm wrong. 4/10. I was trying to save him there, saying he might have been able to get onto the accelerator a bit earlier, but the straight just isn't long enough after that. Didn't carry enough speed through, and it's cost him dearly. So he should still slot into second on our numbers.
Just threading the needle there with that right-hand turn braking zone into a left-hand turn. He got very close to that inside wall, but managed to keep out of it. So, as you say, looking good here to slot into second as he crosses the line. Yes,
yeah,
1:11.7. So
only 2/10 ahead of Sean Allen in the end. So Thomas Paul 11.79, 11.729, I should say. As we now move our attention to the Stealth Penrite Racing ZB Commodore driven by Colin Warwick.
Yes, with that Larry Kiss livery that I mentioned during qualifying. It's certainly something to behold.
His second place in qualifying 1, and that was a decent effort from him. The time that he set in qualifying 1 was an 11.3. It was actually only Thomas McMillan who got into the 10s before, so Kurt Stenberg improving by quite some margin on what he did in qualifying. But let's see what Colin Warwick can do to the first sector. He is up by 0.5 of a second, Madbird.
Absolutely, he is ready to rock and roll all night. As he's
keep it simple.
He's currently leading through the first sector. Oh, he's taking an incredible amount of curbs.
Yeah, he wiped off a lot of speed there.
Yeah, it looked like he had to slam on the brakes to avoid the wall. I reckon he is not going to continue to be up through the second sector. And indeed, we're not even getting a sector split. He must have cut the track.
Oh, that's disappointing.
That's very disappointing.
Ghastly. Colin Warwick with a cut track, the only man to do so far. We've had 8 runners so far, and they've all set a lap time. 1 or 2 of them have had a few rubs with the wall, but we haven't had a track cut yet, and that's actually a surprise to me.
Yeah, it didn't seem that egregious in my opinion, and he certainly penalised himself by having to slam on the brakes, but.
Going to come in the pit lane.
He is. So Gold Coast and Colin Warwick have sung I was made for loving you, baby. Are you made for loving me? I can't get enough of you, baby. Can you get enough of me? And Gold Coast has said, well, actually I can. You've had a bit too much of me.
I don't know if speed is in your genes, Simmons. Thomas McMillan is going to be very, very hard to beat, man.
He is going to be incredibly hard to beat. He is beginning his hot lap right about now as he comes around that curved start-finish straight, which is a contradiction in terms. Interesting to see what sort of line he takes. Oh, very squirrely on the brakes. Actually quite conservative there on the exit of the chicane. Didn't get up onto 2 wheels as we've seen a lot of people do. And he's down by about 0.02 of a second.
Oh, not much though. Not much. If anyone knows how to take this back chicane, it'll be Thomas McMillan, because he has done some stellar lap times in practice. He bounces over the curbs, but he doesn't get too much air. I wonder if that rub with the wall will cost him though. Down to the braking zone here at turn number 11.
He's up.
He is up, but he was very wide through the apex. He braked very, very deep, and he missed the apex by a huge margin. He's gonna struggle to stay up here, I think.
He is, and this is he'd be quite aware that with no Ethan Warren, no Jake Maloney, this is probably one of his best chances to claim a race win. We know he's got a lot of pace, but he just hasn't managed to keep it together for an entire race thus far this season to take out a win.
It's going to be first or second, but is it going to be first? No,
Second.
He misses out by a tenth of a second, and that's 2 pole positions in a row for Kurt Stenberg.
Absolutely, very well done from Kurt Stenberg. It was considered and safe, but bloody quick, I believe, is the term that you would use for that.
That is the term that I would use. So Kurt Stenberg hitting a patch of purple form at the exact right moment in this championship. So that's the grid. Kurt Stenberg in pole position. Thomas McMillan will start alongside him on the front row.
Not a stat that Thomas McMillan probably would want me to read. He started 16 races in this season of Automobilista Supercars Championship. He's finished 8 of those 16 races. So he has a 50% DNF chance in this season so far, including the last 3 races at what was Bend? Oh, the Bend. He didn't join us for the Bend. At Pukekohe, both races 1 and 2 were DNFs, and then of course at Bathurst, although that was not their fault, that was a technical issue, I think.
Speaking of technical issues, Madbird, we just got word through on the ground from Colin Warwick that the shifter issue that was troubling them during the Bathurst 1000 has returned for Colin Warwick. Triple up shifts during his qualifying lap.
Oh god!
And that is a very, very disappointing thing to return, and at precisely the wrong moment. And at a track that he clearly had pace at because he was second in qualifying.
Well, and he was up through the first sector, so if he was having issues with his shifter from the start of the session, he did quite well, to be honest, to get as far around the track as he did.
Yeah, well, I'm wondering though if that happened during the lap itself and not didn't happen during the session itself. Well, we'll cover more of that off in a few moments. We're going to take a short break because it's a long race ahead of us, Madbird. And
absolutely.
We'll be back very shortly. Don't go anywhere.
Our live coverage of the Automobilista Supercars Championship will be back shortly. For more information about the Automobilista Supercars Championship, including race results and official championship points, don't forget to visit the Automobilista Supercars Facebook and Instagram pages for all the latest news and results. To enhance your watching experience, you can follow all of the live timing for each race at rsmclanau.liveraces.com.
Welcome to the previous round recap brought to you by Apex Rear Wing. Round 12 of the Automobilista Supercars Championship was the big one. The best 6.2 kilometres of tarmac in Australia, the Mount Panorama Circuit in Bathurst. And to kick off the Enduros, a full-length 1,000 kilometre race was held. The Saturday qualifying saw a tightly fought pole position shootout with Kurt Stenberg snatching pole position from Thomas McMillan with a mighty middle sector across the top, and McMillan probably ruining a tiny mistake or two, missing out by a tenth of a second. Off the start, Kurt Stenberg withstood pressure from Thomas McMillan and held onto the lead into Griffin's Bend. After a scrappy qualifying lap, Ethan Warren had made good ground at the start of the race, climbing up to second place and putting Stenberg under enormous pressure for the lead. A tiny snap of oversteer through Reed Park from Stenberg was all the invitation Warren required to snatch the lead of the race on lap 18. After stretching out a lead of 40 seconds over his rivals, Warren came in after a double stint and handed driving duties over to his teammate Colin Warwick. Meanwhile, Jake Maloney, having taken over from Kurt Stenberg, was under pressure from the ZB racing car driven by David Nenadich, and relinquished second place with a scrape of the wall after getting caught up behind some lap traffic. The ZB Racing combination was strong. On lap 48, Nenadich handed the car back to his teammate Zach Baker, who promptly set the fastest lap of the race, the fabled 2:03 land, after being the only man to do so in qualifying the night before. On lap 74 and lap 8, driven by JP Courier and Jinx, and the number 248 front row starting car of Thomas McMillan and Josh Anderson, sadly both due to technical issues. These two incredibly were the only retirements of the race. On lap 90, the field was bunched behind the safety car, effectively resetting everyone's strategy, and handing out a bunch of erroneous penalties when the race got underway. However, after some brief and stress-filled moments, server admin Chris Carr was able to clear the penalties and the race carried on. Barely a moment later, Ethan Warren dropped it in the cutting, and Zach Baker took the lead of the race on lap 97. Baker would hang on to the lead until the end of his stint, when he came into the pits and handed the car back to David Nenadich. At this point of the race, Kurt Stenberg was the fastest man on the circuit, having taken over from Jake Maloney in the Trans-Tasman ZB Commodore on lap 90 when the safety car came out. After struggling initially on the restart, he closed down David Nenadich and took the lead on lap 118. On lap 135, Colin Warwick surprised everyone by coming in for his last pit stop 4 laps before anyone was expecting him. Ethan Warren took over and managed to undercut Zach Baker on fresher tyres, but with so much fuel saving to do, keeping him behind was always going to be a tall order. Out in front, the triple stinting Kurt Stenberg was grateful for the reprieve, as the Penrite team's bold strategy play blunted ZB Racing's charge for victory. After some hard racing, Zach Baker got past Ethan Warren, but the question of whether Ethan could get the car home on the podium remained unanswered. Out front, Kurt Stenberg completed a masterful triple stint to win the inaugural Automobilista Supercars Bathurst 1000 with Jake Maloney for Trans-Tasman Racing, with the ZB Racing duo of Zach Baker and David Nenadich putting in the performance of the year for them to finish second, with the fastest lap by Zach Baker, and Ethan Warren brought it home for a podium finish with Colin Warwick after saving roughly 4 laps of fuel in the final stint. Welcome back everyone to round 13 of the Automobilista Supercars Championship. Tonight we're racing at the Gold Coast Surface Paradise. It's the second part of the Endurance Cup, starting last round at Bathurst and finishing next round in Sandown. But tonight it's the streets of the Gold Coast. 102 laps, close to 300 kilometres around this 2.98 kilometre anti-clockwise circuit. Fuel usage is expected to be somewhere in the region of 4.5 litres per lap, and that means that our expected stint length, Madbird, is about 24 to 25 laps, and that's very, very close to a 4-stop, but a bit of fuel saving will be required.
Yeah, it's tantalisingly close. Speaking of tantalisingly close to the start of the race, we've got Jake Maloney has joined the session while the warm-up timer is on 0. So that's about cutting it about as close as you possibly can. So our championship co-tagonist, I suppose, will actually take the start of the race. It's a lovely shot of the pit lane there.
No, we're not looking at that.
Oh.
I'm setting up the next shot.
Do apologise.
That is the lovely shot of the pit lane. There's smoke and mirrors, my beautiful subjects.
Oh, my goodness.
We don't show you those anyway. Jake Maloney, you're right, has made it, and that makes 14 runners, which means Jake Maloney will be starting from the back in place of Job Stewart, perhaps. Are we wondering? We didn't see Job Stewart make practice, so as we get our worms in order, numerous shufflings of papers are happening in the background, and we're starting to grid up.
We absolutely are. I quite like these little clear containers.
If you're watching on the commentary cam on Facebook, and you'll get to see some of that. We'll try and keep abreast of the pit stops through these, but
do our level best.
We'll do our level best.
Which can sometimes not be fantastic. This is quite a good. I quite enjoy this particular camera shot. It's quite similar to the one in real life. Gazing down the pit lane, half obscured by the grandstands. Love your work, Channel 10? No. Who has the supercars?
Well, it's on Fox, I suppose. I think it is on Channel 10, to be honest. I don't know, because I watch all of my racing on KO. KO! Which is because KO provides everything ad break free. But they're off on their warm-up lap now, so let's quickly just take you through the grid. And that's not supposed to be capturing the cursor. Nevertheless, Kurt Stenberg is on pole position from Thomas McMillan in a newly levered Pleb Sim Sport car, I should say. I feel like it's a darker blue than we've seen in recent weeks on that car. Thomas Paul starting in 3rd place. Great qualifying from him in the MP Sim Sports number 305. And then we've got the 2 Race on Oz cars with Sean Allen leading Brody Steen. Behind him will be Aidan Schultz in 6th place for team number 11. And I think it's a pretty good qualifying session from him. RSM Latino will be starting in 8th, and we know that he can do some laps. He did 161 of them in Bathurst. Actually, he was a few laps down, so he didn't do the full 161, but he did 6 hours nearly.
Splitting hairs somewhat.
Exactly. David Nenadic will be starting in 9th, with Colin Warwick rounding out the top 10 after having a return of the shifter issue that plagued him during the Bathurst 1000 during his qualifying lap. Termo will be starting from 11th place, and behind him Zach Baker in 12th, who didn't take part in qualifying and thus didn't make the shootout. Jack Handel in 13th, and Jake Maloney bringing up the rear, trying to keep his championship hopes alive.
Yeah, this, we do know what the maths is, Stairs. Can Jake Maloney technically win the championship at this point?
Kurt Stenberg, you mean?
No, can Jake Maloney
Well,
win
he's the most likely. There's
Stenberg?
actually 5 drivers still in contention because they are within... In fact, I think there's more than 5 drivers now because we still technically have 900 points available. So anyone who's within 900 points of Kurt Stenberg is still mathematically in with a chance of winning the championship. But more realistically, it's those sort of within sort of 250, 300 points of him that could capitalise if Kurt were to have any retirements or anything like that.
300 points for this race, isn't it?
That's right.
His lead is currently 250, so hopefully he doesn't crash out.
Well, that's the lights. We're about to get started. 102 laps here in Surfers Paradise, and Thomas Paul did not get off the line. It looks like a little bit of lag there because he's now managed to get going, but Thomas McMillan is going to have the whole shot. Kurt Stenberg coming under pressure now with Sean Allen going into 2nd place ahead of him. What a great start from him. Fantastic
Start from the 2nd row of the grid. Thomas McMillan just going. Kurt Stenberg's around.
Oh no!
Kurt Stenberg's around at the hairpin. He's at the back of the field already after less than, oh God, I don't even know how long that is, a few hundred meters probably, but my God, he is already down to 14th, down 13 places from his start. That is not the start that Kurt Stenberg wanted. Here's the replay. Got squeezed into the wall at the hairpin by Sean Allen, and that was a weird little spin there. He just went... It's usually the car on the outside that gets tagged and spun around, but in this case it was Kurt Stenberg who's lost a huge amount of time. He has indeed. Looks as if maybe he just lit it up a little bit on the curb and his car didn't like it. Regardless, he's got it all to do. His teammate, however, Jake Maloney, is already up 4 spots into 10th. And also Colin Warwick up 5 spots from where he started. So it's been an absolutely hectic first lap there as Kurt Stenberg gets into the back of Termo at the final corner, making up another position, or a position already, although he didn't quite get the job done. He's got the slipstream down into turn 1, and it looks like he will go through. In fact, Termo rolls out of the throttle and lets him go by. Meanwhile, up at the front, it is Thomas McMillan leading by 1 second over Sean Allen, and Thomas Paul in 3rd place. Yeah, they're spreading out a little bit. 1.2 seconds now covering 1st to 2nd, and 1.8 back to... Is Thomas McMillan incredibly hairy across the back chicane. It's early days. You don't need to push that hard, but I think he wants to build a gap on Sean Allen. Yeah, he's... we've got a huge number of cars spun around. Aidan Schultz going through... and Colin Warwick. Colin Warwick is now down to 14th. So. Kurt Stenberg up to 10th. There's a car in the wall at turn 11, and we couldn't quite see who that was. Wonder if they'll just pop into shot, so we'll try and find out who that was. So that means that Kurt Stenberg has climbed back 4 spots already from what he lost on the first lap. Zach Baker also up 5 spots from his start. He's currently in 7th, fighting for that position with the San Remo Mustang. I reckon Con Warwick might have had an issue with that shifter. We'll try and get a replay of it as you're looking at Kurt Stenberg recovering. Now here is the replay with Aidan Schultz and Colin Warwick going into the chicane on the back straight. Colin Warwick, just misjudged, I think.
Yeah, right into the rear of Aiden Schultz, and Aiden Schultz obviously doesn't carry as much speed through there as Colin Warwick was expecting, and then Colin Warwick, with a bit of an unsafe rejoin to the racetrack, causes all sorts of carnage, and, well, that's what happened there. Now, I think the car that was in the wall, deep. Oh, Kurt Stenberg has just gone into the wall, on our other screen, as we go from one replay to the other. I'll just zoom this one through so that you can see what happened here, all up on the curbs, and it's very, very hard to pick your braking points when you're behind another car.
It absolutely is. It could have even been, with Colin Warwick, it could have been that he had one of his shifter issues as he was coming down through the gears to brake for the corner.
Yeah.
Car doesn't slow down too much if you just slam down them before the engine's ready. Although you'd think that the engine would blow up in that case. Regardless, he's back onto the back of Aiden Schultz, and Aiden will probably be hoping for not a repeat of that going into the first couple of corners for the first chicane of the racetrack on this only lap 4. Feels like we've been talking for a bit longer than that, and it looks like he's just letting him through.
Yeah, well, wouldn't you, given what's just happened?
Yeah, fair enough. That's, but I believe if in our ARW races, if Sam Smith comes up close behind Resist at some stage, Resist might just let him through.
I don't know. It's a psychological advantage there. Kurt Stenberg, bit of pressure there on the back from Stephen Birchall, but it's now a race of recovery for a lot of these drivers as Kurt Stenberg again grabs the wall there.
Brody Steen's around. Looks like it was at the end of the back straight. He managed to flip it around and get back out into the race without getting in anybody's way. So very well done to him.
There's a lot happening.
Definitely a lot happening. You have to bear with us as we sort of scramble for replays on these things.
He did well, actually, to cut across you there, to keep it out of the wall. He realised that he wasn't making the corner and just did a little half spin to get the car back in the right direction. Lost a few spots to the ZB Racing guys and went on his jolly way.
Absolutely. Jake Maloney up into 4th place.
Jeez. So from last on the grid after not qualifying, just rocked up.
This is why he just gives himself a bit of an early, a bit of a sleep in. I think he's like, I don't really need to worry about qualifying. I can just rock up. I'm top 1 or 2 in V8 Scops. I can just rock up to ASC and blitz my way up into the podium places within a few laps.
And with Kurt Stenberg in 8th place and struggling. Oh, that was one of the ZB cars in the
David
wall.
Nadich, very heavily into the wall. Doesn't look like he's copped any damage, but his teammate won't be singing his praises. It's held him up a little bit.
Tell you what, whenever I see Kurt Stenberg bouncing over the curbs, I fear for him because he seems to be brushing a lot of that Trans-Tasman racing car up against the wall. And I mean, they're going for the championship, but there is also the small matter of the Endurance Cup points, which Jake Maloney would be leading currently. I haven't done the maths, but because he
Teammates.
and Kurt won the Bathurst 1000, this is the tiebreaker between them.
Yeah, absolutely, and Kurt is definitely losing that tiebreaker at the
Whoa!
moment.
Jake Maloney got it all wrong there, and that'll be one of his corner cuts. They are allowed 10 corner cuts for the 102 laps of this race.
Significant.
It is significant because, 3 would be very difficult, almost impossible. We've got Kurt Stenberg now making his way past Brody Steen. Apologies for the bit of frame rate stutter there. The ZB Racing cars running line astern ahead, so they're the next target for Kurt Stenberg. But Jake Maloney certainly not immune to errors himself.
What's happened to... I'm seeing some issues with turn mode. Never mind, he has reappeared. Just having a couple of lag issues there.
Yeah, down in 14th place and some seconds off the pace. RSM Latino.
I'm sorry to cut across you.
That's all right.
I'm slightly worried for Thomas Millen. He's 5 seconds ahead at the moment, which is good, but he doesn't seem to be easing off, which is bad because if he just goes hell for leather for as long as humanly possible, he is going to put it into the wall.
He has looked clean though, and he's put an awful lot of practice in for this race. I've seen he does, I think, put a lot of laps in anyway. But you weren't there for the Perth it was the Perth street race that we had the pleasure of Michael Zalavari joining me for. We did broadcast that, a non-championship event, and that was a street circuit around Perth Thomas McMillan was unbeatable there.
Okay, so he's a bit of a street circuit specialist.
I think so. He didn't actually race in Adelaide in the first round, and I think that's a damn shame because he probably could have showed us what he's made of. We did have Newcastle, not Newcastle, the other street circuit, Townsville, which I don't think went particularly his way. Madbird just checking up on the results hurriedly as I've brought that up. But this could be a chance for Thomas McMillan to get his first win of the championship. I say that with tentative touching of wood because I don't want to jinx him, but it's looking good for him so far.
It absolutely is.
He says 8 laps into an 102 lap race.
And with the usual, as I said during at the end of practice, or at the end of the shootout rather, without the normal front runners of Jake Maloney and Ethan Warren. Jake Maloney has of course since joined, but he has had the extra handicap of having to start from the back. As much of a handicap as that is, he's currently only 14.5 seconds behind the lead.
And about to make a move for third place by the look. He's been catching up to Thomas Paul fairly quickly. No lap time around the last time for Jake Maloney, so he did get a corner cut. And so we don't have a reference point for the previous lap with Jake Maloney excuse me, to compare with Thomas Paul.
Yeah, he hasn't been. He's been clearly slower than Sean Allen. He's about 9 seconds behind second place man Sean Allen at this stage, but he has been pretty consistent and clean in his running so far. So I imagine he won't fight this position too hard because I don't think it's controversial to say that Jake Maloney is sort of foregone conclusion to overtake him at some stage.
Got Stenberg here. Sorry, just a replay of him making his way past Zach Baker for 6th place.
Yeah, so back up to 6th, though. It's not it's not all over yet for Kurt Stenberg. Of course, it did all happen on lap 1, and there are 101 laps after lap 1 to do, just like Dalmatians.
Well, a bit deep there for Kurt Stenberg through the first chicane, as I promptly ignore.
A bit deep for my reference.
Deep into the 90s.
It looks as if...
It's a long time ago, my friend.
It's a very long time ago. Looks as if Thomas Paul was gapped Jake
Maloney. Oh, that's why.
That would be why.
Jake Maloney all over the curbs.
A little bit too eager, I think, Jake Maloney to get that job done.
Kurt Stenberg too. I don't know. I guess they have to attack them to get the lap speed out, but they're darting with death every single time. And when I say death, I mean the end of this particular simulated race.
Dancing with death.
Dancing with death, that's the term. Bit of a lock-up there from Kurt Stenberg. He hasn't been able to get away from Zach Baker, and this is allowing David Nenadich to just drive away.
Zach Baker's not slow. We saw at Bathurst, they pulled in an, albeit fuel-saving Ethan Warren, and an excellent overtake into the cutting. So he's no slouch. He's given a bit of a sniff. He'll cling on to Kurt Stenberg for all his life. But you can see David Nenadich there in the foreground, exiting the chicane as they are entering it. And entering the hairpin as he bolts off into the distance. So. All of this helping David Nenadich at the moment.
David Nenadich got a track cut on the previous lap as well, so quite a few of them have used the first curb strike that they're allowed out of 10, and well, that's roughly the kind of rate, 1 every 10 laps or so that you would expect. But once they get into a rhythm, they may go 20 or 25 laps without getting one.
And there's a lot of people battling for position and trying to take odd defensive lines and stuff at the moment as well, which definitely wouldn't be helping. Thomas McMillan's lead has gone out to almost 8 seconds. That's 3 seconds more than the last time I looked, which is kind of insane.
Jake Maloney has closed back on Thomas Paul after making that mistake on the previous lap where he lost nearly a second to Thomas Paul. He's a lot closer this time as they come down the start-finish straight.
Yeah, I think Thomas Paul's not driving overly defensive. He's just Jake Maloney just can't find a time to make the overtake stick, and he's having little bits of oversteer coming out of corners like that where he just can't get the power down. He's only half a second behind him, but the straight just isn't long enough to get up alongside for a dive into the chicane. or perhaps he's got a little bit too much. And he's, oh my God!
Oh,
he's
no,
around.
he's gone!
Oh.
That's it, Jake Maloney nearly said Kurt Stenberg. He's going to
Here
lose a
comes Kurt
position to
Stenberg.
Kurt Stenberg. Here he comes, you're right. And that is going to be a great sight for Kurt Stenberg and a very sorry sight for Jake Maloney. As he lights it up, he's going to struggle here to keep ahead of Brodie Steen and Colin Warwick, who's recovering from an earlier incident. And that was very unlucky for Colin Warwick, who's going to try and drive around the outside, but there's a bit of a 2-car roadblock, I should say. Colin Warwick is the third car, and somehow
He cheekily gotten through.
look at that, and so did Colin. Brodie lose 2 spots out of that.
Yeah, he's Colin Warwick just tucked in behind Jake Maloney and,
Yeah, he
went
did.
up the inside. A little bit cheeky, but it's all fair, and he's gotten the job done. Jake Maloney seems to have either too much confidence, misplaced confidence, or no confidence at all through that back chicane. He's all over the show, and oof.
Oh, and one thing I've just actually realised is that Colin Warwick isn't recovering. This isn't for position. Colin Warwick's actually down in 13th. No, he's not. He's gone back to 8th. I beg your pardon. The lap timing has just thrown me for a loop because I had him a lap down a moment ago, and he's been recovered back to 8th place after going past the start-finish straight. So a little bit of a lapse in concentration from Automobilista there. They're all spreading out again.
Something we missed last lap around. Jack Handel has DNF'd from the race.
Oh no!
Not sure what happened there, yeah, that's one runner down about 3 laps ago.
We won't catch a replay of it then.
No, a little bit.
That
long
is his
ago.
garage. And we will see no more of the beautiful DuPont car. We hope to see more of it in the future, but Jack Handel becomes the first retirement of the Gold Coast 300.
So last lap, Thomas McMillan did a 1:11.4. He is the fastest man on track. He has set the fastest lap. He's the only man so far to have dipped into the 110s with a 1:10.7, which is faster than the shootout qualifying pole position time. Last time around, he was about 0.6 of a second faster than second place man Sean Allen, so he is absolutely on it. He's now ballooned his lead out to 9.5 seconds, which is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it is. And he's, of all the drivers that we've had the chance to look at this race so far, during this race so far, I should say, he's looked the most clean. I mean, you were worried about the lap times he was setting, but for fear of giving him the curse, he hasn't looked like he's overdriving the car. He's not bashing it over the curbs. So he's close to the walls, yes, but he's extracting speed from it in a non-dangerous way.
I've seen him have a couple of moments coming out of corners where he's lit the rears up a little, but nothing that would give me significant fear as we watch him go through the back chicane. It looks about out of control because you're flipping over the chicanes, or flipping over curbs. But we saw what real out of control looked like when Jake Maloney went sideways across it and then span.
Well, Kurt Stenberg is a man currently pushing. Let's follow him as he goes down the back straight and see how he attacks these curbs, because I keep glancing over at the screen that we've got him on, and it gives me a near heart attack every time he goes through. He'll probably do something quite sedate this time, but nonetheless, he's pushing to try and put a gap between himself and Zach Baker. He's now past the second ZB Racing car. That was actually quite sedate by his standards.
I think it's one of those things where if you start to you have to push, because if you try to take it easy, you're going to be braking at points where you're not used to it. You're going to be entering corners at speeds that you're not used to. So it's either push and be familiar with the track, or ease off, possibly be safer, but also make it a lot less familiar on yourself. Over 10 seconds now, Thomas McMillan's lead. Over 11 seconds even. Christ.
Yeah, that is big. Of course, we do have the... Oh. Is that Thomas McMillan out of the race?
Yes. Oh, no.
What?
Oh, my God. As I was singing his praises, he is DNF'd from the race. Because
He's just disappeared from the screen straight away. I hope that's not...
No, he's coming up as DNF, as is Jake Maloney and Colin Warwick on the screen.
So the service kicked 2 people straight away.
Serve
3
it.
people.
3 people, because Jake Maloney, Colin Warwick, and Thomas McMillan all currently out. And I believe that was at the same time. 14 laps, 13 laps,
Yep.
12 laps.
Just disappeared from the screens. What utterly devastating news for not just them, but us, because this race was set up quite nicely. What it does is it puts Sean Allen in the lead of this race.
Kurt Stenberg back on the podium, and Thomas Paul in second.
Sorry, we're reeling.
That is supremely disappointing. I was really enjoying that masterclass from Thomas McMillan.
I was quite happy for him.
Can't believe that's been yeah. I'm just a little bit. I'm looking over at Discord, and I'm just looking at Wayne Carr down in the race control chat. I'm thinking that he's probably pulling his hair out if it's a server issue that's caused it. I can only think that it would be if we've had 3 cars DNF within a lap of each other.
The only other thing I could think is that if the 3 drivers who've had that issue are in the same part of the world and that area has had an
blackout.
internet outage or a blackout, but it is it's weird to say that it would be coincidental. I don't think it would be. It's either something to do with a server kicking certain drivers or something like the aforementioned potential blackout. But what a shame.
What that means is we're down to 10 runners with 80, oh, I can't maths, 86 laps to go. So yeah, that is what. Yeah, I'm a little bit struck for words.
Well, it certainly swings the championship back in Kurt Stenberg's favour.
Absolutely, yeah. Jake Maloney, no chance to return serve.
And just looking at those points of the men that are still in contention for the championship, Sean Allen and Brodie Steen, the only other drivers in this race currently. Well, Sean Allen is doing his best by leading the race by a solid 20 seconds over Thomas Paul.
That's all he can do.
It's about all he can do. But it does put him in with a good shout if there were any technical issues. 420 points down, albeit. He will be relying on a DNF from Kurt Stenberg in one of the final 3 races, but stranger things have happened. We have just seen a stranger thing happen.
Just about to say.
So let's just take you through the rest of the field as it stands now. It is a 2. Actually, I believe we've just been joined in the live in the Discord server by 2 of our afflicted drivers for that technical issue. Thomas and Colin, have you got us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, mate.
What happened? Was it an internet thing? Was it a server issue?
No idea at this stage. We're just going to have to play it out and see what happens with everyone else. I'd say it might be leaning towards a server issue because we got the same thing at the same time. So
Yeah, so it wasn't electricity or a
nah,
internet outage.
didn't get hit by lightning. Nah.
Yeah, it sucks.
Well,
Yeah.
Thomas, you were in absolutely purple form tonight. Fantastic lead. Don't want to rub salt into the wound, but commiserations, my friend.
Yeah, I did a bit of practice. Car felt good. Was real comfortable. Just hitting a number. Pushed real hard at the start. Did that 10.7 as you saw, pushing. And then as soon as I Sean Allen to like 6 seconds, I thought I'll just take it easy, hit low 11s, see what happens.
Yeah, that's. I was singing your praises and also terrified that you were going to put it in the wall. So I'm gutted on your behalf. That was looking like an absolute dominant display, and unfortunately cut short.
Yeah, oh well, we'll see what happens. Sucks for me and Cole, but yeah, we'll watch on.
You will. Thanks for joining us. It must be a difficult time right now for you, so hope you enjoy the rest of the race and the rest of the boys can put on a good show for you.
No worries. Thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
thanks, boys.
Thank you.
Cheers, boys.
So Simon Allen, Sean Allen has a 21-second lead over Thomas Paul. That's a pretty decent lead in and of itself. He hasn't won a race since Perth in round 5.
Yeah, where he won both of those, if I'm not mistaken, both the Perth Super Night races.
That's right.
That was one that myself and Michael Zalavari commentated. Michael Zavallari getting around in Perth, apparently.
Apparently.
Yeah, doing the super night with me, and then the street circuit with yourself. As you say, that's been cut down, actually, as we've been speaking, to about 17 seconds.
Yeah.
So
Can we see a
must have had
mistake?
a little moment there for Sean Allen. He's driving a little bit tentatively by the looks of it, so he might have just had a bit of a shake up.
Just see what his lap time is as he comes. As he come into the hairpin, actually. So his lap time should have emerged on live timing, but it doesn't look too bad. It's a 12.4. Thomas Paul did a 12.8, so maybe that was just Automobilista extending his gap for us artificially. So maybe 16. Oh, it's back to 20.
Back to 21. I think those chicanes confuse Automobilista a little bit with its
The
timing.
natural ebb and flow of where they are at various parts of the racetrack there. Another one for the commentators to look out for. Well, let's go for one of our patented Apex rear wing stock takes. So we were about to do one before we lost 3 cars from the race, which was bitterly disappointing. But moving right along from that, Thomas Paul is in second place by what we think is about 16 seconds, I should say. Kurt Stenberg's catching him up, I must say, at a decent rate of knots. Caught him by 0.5 of a second on the previous lap. So back on the podium after a horrific start. A couple of cars drop out of the race, and all of a sudden he is on the podium and looking at second place potentially. Zach Baker going strongly up 8 spots from where he started in 4th place, ahead of his ZB teammate in David Nenadic, who also is up 4 spots. So that's a bit of a turnaround in fortunes for them after the qualifying session. Brody Steen is in 6th place, and he's all by himself, more or less. Aidan Schultz down there in 7th, recovering from a bit of a whack up the rear from Colin Warwick. We're not sure if... probably should have asked him while we had him whether that was caused by the upshifting problem that he had. It's been a very bad
night.
Bad couple of weeks, really, for Colin Warwick in terms of the luck that he's had. Aidan Schultz going quite tentatively through there. Stephen Birchall in 8th place, and he's the last man on the lead lap with RSM Latino in 9th, and about 40 seconds behind him in 10th place.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's all calmed down a little bit.
It has.
After that gut punch of a technical issue.
We're coming up to the first round of pit stops.
Yeah, coming up. So we're on lap 22. We reckon around lap 24, most likely, or thereabouts, to be when pit stops are likely to happen. So we would expect to see some cars coming in the very near future. We've got our whiteboard marker ready.
Yep.
And our little mini, not whiteboard, but close enough.
No, we don't have someone to man the whiteboard for us this time because it's just the two of us.
A luxury.
It was a luxury. I especially enjoyed when it fell off the ladder that we had
talk about that.
Very precariously perched upon. It was always going to happen, let's be honest.
Yeah. I remember going over there and thinking, what's this chair doing here? I should move it. And then realizing that the chair was what the plank that was... there was a plank laid across the ladder that the whiteboard was sitting on. And the plank, because there was no other side to the steps of the ladder, it was just steps on one side. The plank was resting on the chair on the other side of the ladder in order to hold the whiteboard marker.
Is that what happened?
As I no. So this was earlier. As I began to move the chair, I realised and stopped myself. I was in a hurry to write down pit stops as the safety car came out, and I pressed on it a little bit too hard apparently, and it just fell to the floor.
He will do that. Brody Steen has just had a very scrappy lap and lost
Stenberg in the pits.
bucket load of time. Kurt Stenberg in the pit lane.
So lap 22.
That's early.
He's our very first into the pits, very early. David Nedadic as well has followed him in. So a couple of laps earlier than we were expecting. Maybe trying to, or maybe the fuel burn has been a bit more than anticipated due to some tight battles on track.
Well, he's had a few flick spins in that.
We have.
That'll
certainly uses a few litres.
burn through a bit of fuel there. But before I was rudely interrupted by the premature onset of pit stops, Aidan Schultz does seem to be catching Brody Steen after Brody Steen made a little bit of an error on the previous lap. Let's see if Brody Steen can pick up the pace and start to stretch back the margin that he had prior to that.
Absolutely. Stephen Birchall also in the pits.
Ooh, and a bit of an off track there for Aiden Schultz.
Yeah, a little bit messy chasing after Brody Steen. Both of them up one position from their start. Zach Baker.
Sean Allen's also in the pit lane.
Oh, yep. So, race leader in the pits. Was going to say Zach Baker has found himself on the podium, but that's because he hasn't pit yet. But still, he's 9 positions up from where he started. He's on a bit of a tear. Thomas Paul also into the pits, as is Zach Baker, having just spoken about him. So, about a lap earlier than, 2 laps earlier than we expected. Everyone's filtering into the pits. So,
that'll make it hard to turn this into a 4-stop. A 3-stop.
Yeah, unless there's a
Aiden
safety
Schultz.
car.
And Stephen Birchall coming out of the pits has nearly found the wall there. He managed to
hold on to it.
Arrest the speed before he slammed into the wall. There is Aiden Schultz going into the pit lane.
Yes, indeed. As Zach Baker and Thomas Paul are trundling towards the exit. So Thomas Paul loses the position to Kurt Stenberg. So, unfortunate for him, he's been... Oh, and Zach Baker got a drive-through penalty.
Oh, no.
So he must have he let off the speed limiter a little bit too early by the looks of it, and he has got a drive-through penalty. That's gutting for the ZB Racing. That is a very long pit lane to have to trundle through. That's very unfortunate for him, as as Kurt Stenberg flings his way through that chicane ahead of Thomas Paul. As I was just saying, Thomas Paul was ahead of him before the pit stop, so that undercut has worked wonders for Kurt Stenberg, pitting a lap earlier. Sean Allen is back into the lead ahead of his teammate, who of course has not pit yet. Everyone has pit now except for, I believe, Termo, RSM Latino, and Brody Steen. I think everybody else has. Not 100% sure on that one. We're on lap 24 now, so this is when we expected people to be coming in.
Yeah, it's going to make it very, very hard to do this on 3 pit stops now. We were expecting maybe they would be able to do it in 3 if they saved 2 or 3 laps of fuel, but that was when we were expecting closer to 25 laps, 24 or 25 laps.
Zach Baker pulling in to do his drive-through penalty, so the poor man trundling along at what's the pit lane speed?
40 kilometres an hour.
40 k's an hour down this very, very long pit lane.
Well, that's why it's so easy to get a drive-through penalty, because 40 kilometres an hour in a V8 supercar is downright pedestrian.
Glacial, yeah.
It is glacial.
To use
a Bagsyism. Snap.
Very colourful pit lane, but that won't be cheering him up much.
No, that'll be about as as useful as Warm VB in a glove box in terms of keeping people entertained.
RSM's made it to lap 24.
Yes, but he is 1 lap down, remember, so...
That's lap 24 for him, though.
I'll beg your pardon, you are right.
So he has...
I've crossed him out.
And if there's no more safety cars and everyone else has to pit again, and he manages to do it with 3 stops, then he might find himself sitting pretty. Brody Steen into the pits on lap 25 for him. So he
actually looks very good for Brody Steen strategically.
Yeah. Very well done. So he's eked that out about as far as he possibly can. So he's looking good to manage that in 3 stops with a little bit of fuel saving. And it looks like Termo coming in behind him. Termo currently on lap 24 for him. So I think that is all of our runners who have not DNF'd from the race.
So that's the frantic first round of pit stops, and that gives us a bit of a barometer for what to expect in the second, third, and potentially 4th pit stops of this race, as Brody Steen rejoins behind Aiden Schultz. So that's very similar to the track position that those two held prior to, in fact...
But vice versa.
Yeah, vice versa. Aiden Schultz got a little bit of bite from those new tyres, but that's not a bad spot for Brody Steen to be in. That may help him to fuel save a little bit more if Aiden Schultz is indeed running a similar race pace to him.
Yeah, just can probably just ease off and hang on behind him, lift and coast into the corners and let the slipstream carry him along a little bit. As if Aiden Schultz keeps going deep like that, then he won't be behind him for very long. A little bit scruffy there. John McDonald just joining the chat saying 4 DNFs. Now that's a line. I'm not sure if those were related. I'm imagining that now that the line was in relation to something that we'd said. Yes, unfortunately, we do have 4 DNFs. Jack Handel, we're not sure what happened, but Jack Maloney, Colin Warwick, and Thomas McMillan all with the same technical issue happening pretty much at the exact same time. So something with the server that we are hoping won't rear its ugly head again.
I'm wondering if it was my warm VB in a glove box comment. Just quite proud of, to be honest.
It's quite good. I wasn't sure if that was something you'd stolen or not because you came to it very quickly.
I have seen a video with someone attempting to drink that as, like, you know, your sort of dummy prize. You know, the 40-degree day, VB's been left in the car for about 6 or 7 years. And the loser of said bet has to drink such a thing.
Yeah, fair enough.
Barely drinkable when cold. But anyway, Sean Allen is in the 12s on the last lap. Kurt Stenberg in the 11s. Put a bookmark on that. 14 seconds is the gap between first and second as it stands, but Kurt Stenberg just chipped away at it on the previous lap. We'll see if he can continue to do so as the race goes on.
I will not wanting to rub potentially more, you know, noxious grains into the wound for Thomas McMillan, but when he said that he got the gap out to Sean Allen to about 6 seconds, and then he settled in inverted commas down into low 11s.
Was it low or high 11s?
Low 11s. He
Bloody
said
hell.
like 11.2s. I think was the specific thing he said.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, my goodness.
The man has no off switch, I should say.
Apparently not. And,
Low 11s would get you in on the front row.
Exactly. So he did a 10.7 and thought, oh, that's a little bit too rich for my liking. I'm going to drop it down to a conservative 11.2.
And a sensible thing to do. I'm just utterly disappointed for him that...
Oh, me too. I was as much as I constantly and ruthlessly rib him and him me. And I believe his mate Lewis Kugeley still owes me $10. He was on for a dominant display, and I was very much enjoying it. I was looking forward to seeing him hopefully take a checkered flag, but
well, he's taken a few checkered flags. He just hasn't...
take a checkered flag first.
What is this?
But we've got Sean Allen currently looking pretty to be a first race winner in a few rounds.
Well, he won in Perth. He wouldn't be a new race winner. We've actually had 6 different race winners in this championship.
In a few rounds.
In quite a long time. Yeah, no, good. Fair enough. You did put that qualifier in. I'll give you that.
Yeah, so, you know, don't shit on my
I'm
bed.
not shitting on your bed. I am shitting on your commentary. No, it's all good.
7 rounds ago. My goodness. That feels longer than that. That was back in March.
I've watched the same couple get married twice since then. Because they had a wedding in Singapore and one in...
I forgot that was happening, and so when I went to a mutual friend's when I went to Bagsy's birthday / going away party on the weekend, and I
Apex Rear Wing commentator
Rear Wing
Josh Bagsy, who's moving to Melbourne.
Moving to Melbourne to pursue a career, and Brody Steen has flipped it around 360 degrees. Zach Baker did quite well to avoid him as he came around that corner. That, I think, is where Brody Steen went deep earlier as well at the end of the back straight.
He's dropped another position with that one.
That'll have hurt both his fuel economy and those rear tyres, I imagine, as he's lit it up to get it back around the right way. My goodness. I can't even remember what I was saying.
Mutual friend Josh Bagsy.
Mutual friend Josh Bagsy is moving to Melbourne to pursue a career in
commentator
air traffic
extraordinaire
controlling, including deconflicting, I imagine.
Instead of talking to you guys about cars, he'll be talking to planes about
other planes.
About other planes.
Where was I? Oh, yes. So I spoke to
boat.
somebody, and they were saying, oh, you know, Stairs is at a wedding. I said, oh, whose wedding's that? And they said, oh, it's Lewis and so-and-so's. And I said, didn't he just go to Lewis and so-and-so's wedding? And I was rather confused for a few moments until it was informed to me that they were indeed doing a wedding in Singapore and in Adelaide.
Many happy returns to the couple. Probably not watching this, but
Probably
Lewis
not.
and Adeline, if you do end up watching this, wish you the best. It's been a pleasure to attend 2 of your 3 weddings. And
3?
well, there was a an official one prior to the first one. Don't know if that's public knowledge. Anyway, moving right along.
It is now. Jesus. I didn't get an invite to any of them. Granted, I've spoken to the guy 3 times, but, you know, would have been nice to...
Benji got one.
Hey? Who did?
Never mind. This is very
Talking about
obtuse.
someone that nobody who's listening to this, except for possibly...
Kai Jones in the live chat says, oof!
I believe that was in relation to Brody Steen's spin. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Kai Jones. Or is that Cal?
He's
Oh, it is Kai.
dropped a 1.5 seconds on the previous lap to Zach Baker, so I wonder if he's struggling with a bit of damage from that. It was a glance with that inside wall. It's an easy mistake to make. I think that was the Chaz Mostert corner in real life where you just bounce off the inside wall. He didn't actually make contact with the outside wall, but it was just sort of enough to cost him an awful lot of time.
Or possibly even just having a look at his tyres. His tyres are actually in pretty decent nick compared to the cars around him, which makes sense since he pit about a lap afterwards.
Yeah, you'd have newer tyres than anyone because he came in on lap 25.
You would hope so. That is how maths works. The banter from John McDonald, that's what we excel at, John. Glad to have you here listening to our ramblings.
A frequent visitor to the live chat when we did the Automobilista Supercars Bathurst 1000. So good to have you back, John.
Oh,
and
fantastic.
I saw that you actually raced John in the Super 2 race. So I don't know if it's as a result of watching the Super 2 Bathurst, the Super 2, the Automobilista Supercars Bathurst 1000 that you got involved, or whether it was just a coincidence. But 7th place on the race on Tuesday last week.
And, well, basically 6th place once you take out Will Devonish, who, of course, wasn't classified.
Yeah, I think RSM Latino getting the points for the win in that. So RSM Latino, Termo, Cam Rutledge and Tony were all invited here as wildcards.
Says he is the bloke that didn't have a reverse gear in Bathurst. What? In Super 2 Bathurst? I don't remember that. Oh! Wait, yes I do. I do believe I do remember that. That was at the top of the hill.
Well, we've just embarrassed ourselves, haven't we?
We have.
We apologise for not remembering you.
Not remembering you from less than 2 weeks ago. Or just over 2 weeks ago. My goodness. We drink a lot.
I don't, though. I've got no excuse.
I mean, I don't even drink that much. Kai Jones saying, yeah, it was Brody. That corner will get you the minute you lose concentration. Absolutely, it will. It's a very... That was a Stairs...
Oh, I do remember that being Brody. That was certainly something that I knew happened.
Stairs and I were discussing before the broadcast, and I was saying that turn 14 was a bit of a C word due to the curved braking zone. And he said that turn 11, the one that Brody Steen got caught out at, was the one that he considered to be the true C word. So
there's a lot of tricky C word corners, which is a vernacular that we use in Apex Rear Wing for a corner that's just an absolute
not nice
to get round.
Yeah.
And catches you out time after time, even though you're prepared for it. And Sean Allen, big wiggle there.
He just wanted. He's a little bit bored out the front.
He's showing off.
He wanted to give us something to look at.
Well, let's give him a bit of airtime since there isn't really anyone close on track. Thomas Paul and David Nenadic may converge in a few laps' time, so we'll keep an eye on that one. But
John McDonald just reassuring us, saying he embarrassed himself by staring at a wall for 2.5 minutes. Which
the thing is, I remember that vividly.
I remember that vividly.
I just don't remember the name attached to it.
I did not remember the name attached to it. So if you hadn't dobbed yourself in for that, John, then you would have gotten away with it, mate. But
that noise I'm making, if you're watching on the commentary
it's
cam.
us attempting to dig ourselves out.
Yeah. Well, dig up, stupid.
Dig up, stupid.
But what we are doing right now, Madbird, is filling for time. Lap 44 or 45 is probably when we would expect the second round of pit stops to start happening. So we've got 8 laps to go until that point.
If John McDonald was here for the Automobilista Australia Bathurst 500, was it? It wasn't full length.
5. Do you mean last year?
Yeah.
Oh yes, that was
whatever length it was.
If you were watching that,
you've got an incredible familiarity with the concept of filling. if you did indeed watch that one.
Which is on the Stairs channel, if you
Yes.
do want to go digging up what really was Bagsy and I talking shit for a long time, because we ended up with 3 cars separated by about a lap each
So it's like if
at
we'd
the halfway point.
It's like if we'd be if you weren't watching the commentary cam, you would have missed Stairs' significant little look across at me as he said, at the halfway point.
Yeah.
I feel like if we had been streaming back when we did the ARW 6 hours of Spa, and we had 3 cars running at the end of the race, probably about half a lap between them as well, due to technical issues. ARW 3 hours of Suzuka though, no such problems. Went quite well, if we say so ourselves.
Keep your eyes peeled for more endurance races from Apex Rear Wing,
Yeah, and,
because there are some in the works, aren't there?
There absolutely are. Aiming for first Q1 next year, if we want to use official speak, and
Not to be confused with qualifying one. We mean quarter 1 of the year when divided into quarters.
keeping
Which encompasses the
and-
first 3 months of the year, being January, February, and March.
and
Sorry to cut across you there.
No, it's really the thing that I'm going to say is worth being cut across.
Okay.
I was going to say, speaking of keeping your eyes peeled, that might be a little hint for what cars we'll be using. If you think about peeling, something that you'd peel, and something that you'd get from that.
You've got really strong biceps.
to draw this bow so far.
Yeah, okay, you got where I was going with that.
But you get what I'm going at, don't you? Something that you peel. It gives you something that starts with a letter that's significant to the thing that we're looking at doing for the next endurance race. Gives you a lot of
Bananas? It's got potassium in them.
it's a particular vitamin that starts with a letter.
Vitamin D? Got no idea what you're getting at here. I'm sorry.
I'll clue you in after the race. John McDonald switched the gearbox and have a fair dinkum reverse gear now. What an absolute legend. That's what...
It wouldn't be the first. I mean, let's name some of the drivers who've had issues with Automobilista just getting themselves in trouble after a good showing. Bretton Foley didn't know how to change tyres in Simmons Plains in the Automobilista Australia.
happened to Hobson as well, didn't it?
Well, that was the. I was going to move on to
my bad.
Bretton Hobson of Infinity Series fame, who unfortunately came a cropper several times due to engine problems. So, have we got something to look at?
No, we don't. Sorry, I was just scrolling through in the hopes that we did.
What's this? RSM Latino. That's not for position because Tomo is a lap down on him.
Yeah, no, the closest battle currently on track is not close. We're looking about
It's probably Aiden Schultz
2 seconds
and
between
Zach
Aiden Schultz
Baker.
and Zach Baker. Yeah.
We will keep an eye on that.
Someone's lit up. Oh, Tomo's exploded.
Oh no.
His engine is gone. Or is it?
Oh, Aiden Schultz has gone into the wall.
What is happening? There was an incredible amount of smoke coming from Tomo's car, so I assumed that he'd blown his car up.
He has had an incident with the wall. We'll try and catch a replay of what happened there, but we are looking at... Oh! That happened right in front of Aiden Schultz. Aiden Schultz was taking avoiding action, and that was the reason why he was recovering.
So the smoke I'm seeing is whenever Tomo turns right, there is an incredible amount of smoke from his car, so he has done a large amount of damage to the bodywork on the left-hand side of his car.
Yeah, we're just looking at the replay to see if we can pick up how that's... Yeah, oh, there it is.
Oh, that
Yeah.
would be it.
That is flush.
That is, landed it quite well.
Yeah.
Unfortunately without the bonnet. But
Got 8 from the Russian judge.
he's...
and that was just unfortunate timing. He was kind of sort of probably half licking his wounds after that big mammoth shunt that he had, and probably forgot to be off the racing line and reacted at the same time that Aiden Schultz was coming up behind him. So there's a bit of excitement for you. Tomo's now in the pits with a lengthy repair job.
So lap 35, he might be taking on fuel as well. Might as well, I guess.
Yeah,
See what happens. So lap 35.
That's only a 11 lap stint from him.
Yeah, quite a short one.
As you can
obviously.
expect.
I
that
think
would-
obviously not. He wasn't intending to take that
No,
strategy.
not a scheduled stop from Termo. So There was a bit of excitement.
It was. Swiftly gone.
Although Kurt Stenberg's now under 10 seconds behind Sean Allen, so that gap has come down. And has, although Kurt Stenberg got a track cut on the previous lap. We are up to nearly lap 40 though. I feel like the last 20 laps have flown by a lot quicker than the first 20 laps.
And we've got some issues with Turmo. He's glitched out of existence just briefly. I did see this happen on the warm-up lap as well, I believe.
Oh no.
So hopefully he reappears.
Oh, there he is.
Not coming up. Yep, there he is. So he's getting out of the way.
As
Good
the
boy.
leader goes by and leader's teammate.
In that Irwin. I realised that I've got I have an Irwin, well, I say my girlfriend has an Irwin tape measure because my girlfriend owns more tools than me.
Including you. Sorry, you left that wide open. You know, if there was a World Cup soccer match and someone just left the balls there in front of the goals, I mean, you would be
constantly in front of the goal.
You would be angry at me for not kicking it.
I would be, and honestly, I was trying to think of a way to say it myself, and then you swiftly stole it out from under me, which I congratulate you on.
Stephen Birchley is in the pit lane.
He is indeed. So I wonder if that's a scheduled pit stop. That's quite early as well. So that's lap 38 for him. So a few laps extra.
Yeah. It seems early.
Does seem early.
I feel like that's unscheduled. That's only 15 laps.
You've written 28, I think.
No, that is supposed to be a 3.
Oh, okay.
See how that goes in that direction? Yes, that's right. There's nothing wrong with it except that it's completely impossible to read.
No, it's not as bad as my handwriting. You're all good. Turmo. I was going to say, I don't know.
Well, his technical issue seems to have abated because he is back running. He's about to get lapped by Kurt Stenberg and does very nicely there, getting out of the way.
Sean Allen has just lapped his teammate Brody Steen. I wonder if we'll see a little bit of rear gunning from Brody Steen when Kurt Stenberg catches up to the back of him. Maybe just try to keep him behind for as long as possible without attracting a penalty as Kurt Stenberg. It's just the cars seem entirely out of control across that back chicane. It's ridiculous. David Sanford, seeing McMillan DNF is exactly what I expected, but not for the reasons that you would expect, David. He was on an absolute tear. He was looking.
He's always on an absolute tear, but he was on a controlled tear.
Yeah, he was looking confident. He was looking clean, and
when you crease a piece of paper just so.
Oh.
And then you can tear it right down the middle. That was the sort of tear, if you're watching the commentary cam, Thomas
you've
McMillan
not done it particularly well.
No, but you get the example I'm making.
I understand what you mean.
That's the kind of tear that Thomas McMillan was on.
He was a second a lap or thereabouts faster. Yeah, get rid of that piece of paper before enough.
I don't need it anymore.
He was about a second a lap or thereabouts faster than the second place man, and he seemed entirely in control of this race until a cruel server issue kicked himself, Colin Warwick and Jake Maloney from the race. So at the start of the race, David, I would have 100% agreed with you. I would have thought that Thomas McMillan would be in the wall and out of the race within the first few laps, but he lasted until lap 14, and then the game said, unfortunately, Thomas, your brilliance is not for this world.
And Colin Warwick and Jake Maloney
spat him.
At the exact same time suffered the exact same fate, which is absolutely disastrous for Jake Maloney's championship prospects, and he was well placed at that time as well.
And absolutely disastrous for our entertainment. That was looking like an absolute. Not that I'm saying we're not having fun now, but it was.
I'm having a ball.
I'm having a lovely time. It's been a while since we've had a good chance to just sort of chat during a broadcast. We're usually spoiled for things to talk about.
Brody Steen had a bit of a moment on the other screen, just ahead of... No, sorry, that was Sean Allen having that moment, I think.
Yeah, just through the first chicane, I reckon he just a little bit hairy. He's still 9.1 seconds ahead of Kurt Stenberg, so... He's
pegged that gap a bit.
Yeah.
It's not coming down in big chunks like it was before. It might have just been a single mistake that Sean Allen made where...
Could have been. Very easily.
The gap was hovering about 13 seconds. His teammate Brody Steen, though, is having some issues. I think that car is damaged from that earlier contact with the wall.
Yeah, I reckon it would be. He hasn't been on pace for a while now. He was up battling with Zach Baker, and Zach Baker is now about 20 seconds ahead of him, So a significant drop in pace from Brody Steen, which we were saying he was looking pretty good with his strategy, since he managed to eke out an extra lap over everybody else, or an extra couple of laps. Pitted on lap 25, but he's now a lap down to the race leader Sean Allen, and doesn't seem to have the pace at the moment.
We're inching ever closer to second pit stop land for the scheduled pit stoppers. We've also already seen Stephen Birchall and Termo make their second pit stops, but of course, due to damage, we think for Stephen Birchall and we know for Termo. But the first man to make a pit stop, well, it was all around lap 22. David Nenadic and Kurt Stenberg were the first ones to come in, so those are the ones we'll have our eye on around about lap 44, 45.
Yeah, and speaking of lands, Thomas McMillan, the only man who has gotten into 110 land in this particular race so far. No one else has come close to it. I think the closest that we've got is a 112.2 from Jake Maloney, who had some, or Colin Warwick, sorry, not Jake Maloney, had some ripping pace. Although no, we must have people in the 11s, surely.
Yeah, no, Sean Allen, Kurt Stenberg, and Jake Maloney were all in the 11s.
Looking at the wrong column.
Beg your pardon.
That will bring you undone.
Yeah, I think you're looking at last lap, so majority
Every
of them
time.
were in the 12s and 13s, some of them in the 14s. So Kurt Stenberg, I think we'll see him in at the end of this lap based on the fuel mileage that he got during the first stint, but he may have decided to save a little bit of fuel this stint.
He hasn't been closing that gap. It's come down by a couple of tenths in the last lap or two. But
And that's not Sean Allen in front in the foreground of that shot. That's Brody Steen.
that is Brody Steen, who I wonder if he'll try to hold him up a little bit. Might not have the chance to if Kurt's coming into the pits. God, the cars just
He's
look...
a lot faster.
They look bloody ridiculous going through that chicane. As I've said before, and we'll probably say again, he might just be leaning back and doing a little bit of fuel saving. They would need to save about 4 or 5 laps if they were making 24 laps to a stint, which he wasn't. So he needs to save a fair few laps worth of fuel in order to make it to the end with 3 stops. Of course, barring a safety car, which you'd think if we were going to have one, then we probably would have had it by now with the cars.
Kurt's in. Kurt is in, as expected.
Absolutely. So, right on the dime of 45 laps, he has come into the pits. So, on that logic, we would be expecting David Nedadic to be coming in soon as well. He's just coming around the last corner. He was the one that pit on the same lap as Kurt Stenberg. Looks as if he might be heading across the... Nope.
No, he's saved
staying
another
out.
lap of fuel there. So David Nenadic continues on his merry way. Kurt Stenberg has got moving.
I keep getting excited thinking that there are more people in the pits, but it's just the 4 people that we've had DNF.
Sean Allen, Thomas Paul, Zach Baker, Aidan Schultz all came in on lap 23. So they'll be the next men we expect after David Nenadic to come into the pits.
Yeah, it could be that Sean Allen saved a little bit of fuel out there at the front without having to chase after anybody, and doesn't seem to be pushing particularly hard, just sort of keeping a consistent pace. He might be saving a bit of fuel up there at the front.
Well, he stayed out again. So behind him, Thomas Paul is in second place because Kurt Stenberg has made his second pit stop.
I'm just keeping an eye on the rest of the field, seeing if we can spot them when they come into the pits.
Yeah, so we're just watching Thomas Paul come around the final corner now. So this will be the end of lap 46 for him. We'll try and see if he peels across. Doesn't look like he's doing so, but I think Kurt Stenberg behind.
Or
is.
David Nedadic, rather.
That was David Nedadic.
Coming to the pits, so end of lap 46 for David Nedadic. So he's made it another lap further than Kurt Stenberg did. Going to lose that position to Kurt Stenberg, of course, who's coming around the last corner now. And who else would we be expecting to come in? So Sean Allen, we would expect in the next lap or so. Probably would have expected him this lap.
Yeah, he's made it 1 lap longer, so I wonder if he is fuel saving. That is very important in the battle between himself and Kurt Stenberg, because Kurt will have to put a little bit more fuel in during his final pit stop.
Thomas Paul as well. He's currently
this.
up in second.
Look
and
at this, Sean Allen stayed out.
Stayed out again. So he's saved a few laps of fuel by the looks of it during this stint. Thomas Paul also still out. He also pit on lap 23. So he might be coming in at the end of this lap. He's wonder how long a pit stop is. He's about 20 seconds ahead of Kurt Stenberg in third place.
Yeah, I'd say it's longer than that.
Longer than that, I'd expect. So he's round to the last corner now. Looks like he might be pulling across to enter the pits, and indeed he is.
Thomas
yes.
Paul, indeed. So end of lap 47 for Thomas Paul. He did 23 laps on the first stint and 24 laps on the second stint. That's about right.
So not good news for Kurt Stenberg if his chief rivals towards the top of the field are managing to save 1 or 2 laps more than him each stint. He might all come down to a little splash and dash at the end of the race if he's unable to pull that back.
Well, keeping in mind there was the warm-up lap.
Zach Baker in as well. It says drive-through penalty. I certainly hope he's not.
No, he had one earlier in the race.
He served it already,
Yeah.
surely.
It
And
just-
Aiden Schultz as well. So Aiden Schultz and Zach Baker on lap 47, as well as that is one of the Race on Oz guys. That is Sean Allen.
Yep,
in
Sean
the
Allen's
pits.
in the pits.
End of lap 48, so an extra 3
So
laps.
he actually did save significant fuel there, because we would have expected him for lap 47.
Yeah, that's
He's gone to lap 48, so that's a lap
very
of fuel
significant.
saved.
So very well done there from Sean Allen. He's controlling this race quite well at the front.
Oh,
as
he struggled with Aiden Schultz right in front of him there. And they're
Hopefully
side
Aiden-
by side. This is
Oh.
going to be very interesting who lifts out of the throttle.
I would expect Aiden Schultz is just going to get blue flags the second they get out of the pits, so
He
he
is.
might as well just ease out of it and let Sean Allen through.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't look like he has.
No, and Sean Allen was not willing to push the point there because there's a race win up for grabs here and he's not going to take any chances. So that's a bit messy because it's cost him a little bit of time.
I imagine he'll make the place pretty soon once Aiden Schultz, and he has indeed at the first hairpin. So
Yeah,
one wonders why Aiden Schultz bothered.
He is obliged to get out of the way with blue flags. The game will give you penalties if you don't let cars through.
So it's shaken back out with David Nadadich in the pit stops has caught up to Thomas Paul immensely.
Yeah, what's going on here?
So Thomas Paul is now only 3/10 of a second ahead of.
There's a yellow flag down at turn 1, and it seems to have cleared, so it's not an issue anymore.
Luckily enough.
But here we go. Thomas Paul under pressure again there from David Nedadic, having to go defensive on the brake onto the... Yeah, what's going on there? That was a huge undercut from David Nedadic, who came into the pits on lap 46, so he's had 3 laps on fresh tyres. Once Thomas Paul gets up to pace, though, you would expect him to start to drive away from David. What's going on the other screen?
We've heard
That's a...
heard a crash. It looks as if we might have
yeah, that's a technical issue.
an actual computer crash on one of our monitors. Luckily, we've got 2 with this setup. So we'll continue watching this tasty little battle here between Thomas Paul and David Nadadich while my co-commentator scrambles to old F4. Yeah, that's a huge undercut from David Nadadich. I'm not sure what the gap was before the pit stops, but he's caught up a few seconds there on the MP Sim Racing car, and he's now put himself right up into contention for a podium spot. David Nadadich pitting on lap 46. So he pit a lap earlier than Thomas Paul. And apparently those fresh tyres are absolutely mighty because he's now within half a second of Thomas Paul and challenging for that podium position as we've got a restart happening on our right hand
Yes,
side.
we don't need to talk about that.
And Stephen Birchall with a drive-through penalty.
Well, who was that going deep? I think it was Termo struggling out of the chicanes in the background.
So RSM Lozano has taken his pit stop at the end of lap 48, which is he's run quite deep.
He's the last man to take his second pit stop.
And as I said, a drive-through penalty for Stephen Birchall. He's all over the show. I'm not sure what's happening with him. Looks as if he's having some technical issues, or not technical issues. He's having some damage issues as he pulls into the pits. end of lap 48.
Well, that's no good for him.
For Stephen Birchall. He did, of course, just pit 10 laps ago on lap 38 for what we believe was damage. It's a damn shame for the Mustang. Oh, and we've had a moment from Thomas Paul has blown his engine.
Oh no!
There's smoke billowing from the back of that Falcon, and he's pulled off to the side, and he is out. So that is our 5th DNF of the race. So
naturally, when it was getting spicy for him and another driver, a nice battle was looking like it was in prospect, and it's all fallen apart with
where did it
Thomas
happen?
Paul blowing his engine up.
I think it happened down into turn 1. He had
Let's just catch the replay of. Let's get the right car for.
Yeah, he had David Nandich all over the back of him, and he must have shifted down too fast into the chicane. Little
Let's have a
onboard
listen. Yeah, it didn't sound too bad, but I suspect that was on the downshifts, and
yeah,
we've seen that happen to a number of drivers last year in AMS Oz times. Unfortunately, it's happened to Thomas Paul tonight.
Well, what that means is that David Nadovich is now looking at a 3rd place currently in this race. So that was looking like a tasty little battle. So it's a bit of a shame that we were robbed of that. But Automobilista will be Automobilista, and blown gearboxes will be blown gearboxes.
Blown engines even.
Indeed, that one.
So Thomas Paul becomes the 5th retirement of this race, which is surprisingly a bigger number of retirements than we had in the entirety of the Bathurst 1000.
Indeed, and the retirements that we had in the Bathurst 1000 were technical issues. Stephen Birchall with another drive-through penalty.
Oh,
so
dear.
he must. I'm guessing he's hit his allotment of track cuts, because once you get a penalty for track cut, as Brody Steen has pit at the end of lap 51, so he stretched that for a very long time.
Oh my goodness!
My goodness!
Thought we'd gone through and had all the pit stops.
No,
we didn't.
Lap 51 for Brody Steen.
Well, that's about right, because he came into the pits on lap 25, and with the warm-up lap, probably robbed him of a chance to make it 26 laps on that stint. So he could be a chance.
Stephen Birchall with another drive-through penalty. That's 2 in this lap. So once you hit your allotment of track cuts, you get a penalty, and then every time you do a track cut after that, you get another penalty. So I reckon that's what's happening, is that he's hit his limit of 10.
That's bad news for him, because
in the first half of the race, and he's got to make another 50 laps from here, with every single track cut. And there's 2 chicanes here, folks, and one of those chicanes is quite long. It's really 2 chicanes shoved together. He's got to make 50 more laps, trying to get as few track cuts as humanly possible, because each one of them is a 40k an hour snooze fest down the very long pit lane.
And that's put him now 3 laps down on race leader Sean Allen.
That's going to grow.
Yeah, it is going to grow, but he still has 1 lap as an advantage on Termo. So I think he just wants to be a bit careful with what he does from here on in, and he'll stay ahead of Termo.
He's actually currently still behind Thomas Paul, technically on track. I reckon that he'll... Oh, and it looks as if he's pulled in the pits. He's actually pulled into his pit garage.
Well, that's it for him.
We might be having another retirement here, and we do.
We're just trying to get our second monitor on, so that's why we're not
50.
looking at these issues, so beg your pardon for that.
It's not that interesting, just a car pulling into a box, a boxy box of concrete, also known as a building.
What?
Sorry, that is in little more than 2 laps. We have had 2 people DNF, and we are now down to 8 runners. And
we also had our second computer DNF, but it is back, and here it is.
Half distance, and the gorgeous view of the other monitor.
Yes, so we will have intermittent live timing from here on in. But if you do want to keep abreast of where everyone is in the race, do go onto rsmclanau.liveraces.com, and you can follow all of the live timing as we have access to it. So let's reconvene on this battle for the lead. It is Kurt Stenberg, closing in on Sean Allen, and the gap is down. I was going to say it was down to about 6 seconds, but it's that fluctuation that we see as they get to different parts of the racetrack. It goes out to 10, back down to 6, but
yeah, I reckon those chicanes confuse Automobilista a bit.
yeah, but I do think it's coming down just a little bit.
So, John McDonald saying Termo's gaining on Stephen Thomas at a rate of knots. That's very true. What with them both being stationary.
Yeah, Stephen Birchall and Thomas Paul out of this race, the 5th and 6th retirements. But we still have more people in the race than out of the race, so that is something much to be desired.
That's the Midas test for an attritional race, when you've got more people out of the race than currently still in the race. So we're getting close. One more DNF will be half and half. But at the moment, we're sitting pretty with 8 runners. Termo's just unlapped himself from Stephen Birchall and promoted himself up to 9th place of the 8 runners. And now he's passed Thomas Paul and into 8th place. So we've now got everyone line astern on the leaderboard that you can't see on that particular screen.
But you can see it on this screen.
You can see it on this one. The wonders of technology. So it's just hanging on around 6.2 seconds is Sean Allen's advantage. I reckon Automobilista gets a bit confused about how long it should take you to traverse those chicanes, and so it balloons out the advantage to the car that goes through the chicane first, and then as soon as the other car follows it through the chicane, it contracts it back to what it actually is. So the timing is a little bit unreliable. Oh,
it's now changed, but on the last lap, Sean Allen and Kurt Stenberg actually set the identical lap time down to the millisecond, 1:11.916. So they are matching each other very, very closely indeed, are Sean Allen and Kurt Stenberg right now.
Fantastic consistency. I would be interested to see what the consistency of at the end in the results file is, because I imagine Sean Allen's will be right up there. He's haven't really seen him put a foot wrong. He's been very clean. And the last time I wrapped the driver up like this, he crashed. His connection crashed, and he went from a dominant position to not in the race. So I'm desperately hoping that doesn't happen to Sean Allen.
Aren't we all? Aiden Schultz, by virtue of some attrition, albeit, is up to 5th place and is on track for what I suspect will be his best result of the year. Just looking back through his results, he's quite a consistent points finisher, but he's only ever had one top 10 in ASC history, which was back in the second round in Albert Park, where he came 9th. So he's on target for a good haul of points from him.
Yeah, we were prior to the race. We saw him in the server room. We said to each other, "Oh, he hasn't been around for a while." Turns out he's been around for quite a while, and
Bathurst was a long race though, so anything prior to that is a while ago.
Obviously we fixate on the top of the field usually, because that's where the magic happens. But he has of course been around and has been consistently getting points. He's what is he in the championship at the moment?
14th. We went over 14th. It before, didn't we? He's
yeah.
Not 11th.
He's not
he may
11th.
well be
That's
after
right.
today.
He might well be.
In fact, he might be beyond 11th, given that this is a 300 points paying race. Who was that who wiped in front of frame? Oh, there's a car on its roof. It's one of the ZB cars. Let's try and catch the replay of
Zach Baker.
Zach Baker on his roof, and that has promoted Aiden Schultz up into 4th place. That's a change of position. So how did that happen? Surprise, surprise, the curbs. The car was already a bit banged up. That is a big moment there for Zach Baker. Aiden Schultz drives by safely on the right-hand side.
What's the opposite of a curse? Because we just gave whatever that is to Aiden Schultz. We were talking about him, and he gained a position.
Yeah, that was
commentator's blessing.
That was a blessing for Aiden Schultz. We weren't talking about Zach Baker, but in
we've missed Termo DNFing. Not sure when that happened, but he is out of the race. So
Now we have exactly the same number.
We now
of
have
retirements.
half and half, so we're teetering on the edge of this becoming a truly attritional race.
Well, I think it is fair to say it is attritional at this point, but it certainly makes our strategy or mathematics a bit easier.
It does.
Let's try and catch up on the crossings out. So RSM Latino is now out of the race. What a shame. Sorry, not RSM.
No, the Turbo.
No, Termo being a bit premature there. RSM Latino isn't out of the race. He is last, though, unfortunately. I feel like that was coming for a while for Termo, though that car was badly damaged.
It was. It definitely was. So Kai Jones saying Scotty's Crash version 2 for Zach Baker. That was
Yeah, different part of the racetrack.
different part of the racetrack, but similar.
On his roof.
John McDonald, we also miss saying, even if it does, he still at least gets a top 8. I imagine that was when we were talking about...
Top 7 now.
Top 7 now, yeah.
Can't go worse than that.
Can't go worse than that. John McDonald also said, send him to hospital. I imagine that was about Zach Baker.
Yes, he has passed away. But he is still racing, so...
That's the important thing.
I mean, doing better than most people would after having passed away. I think he might be coming in to the pits. No, I think it's just a narrow exit of the final corner there for Zach Baker. Let's see how it affects his lap time. His sectors haven't been brilliant, but I mean...
I'd be a bit rattled.
Who have we not crossed off who's out of this race? Stephen Birchall.
Stephen Birchall.
Yeah, there we go. So that just leaves Sean Allen, Brody Steen, in no particular order, Kurt Stenberg, David Nenadich, Aiden Schultz, Zach Baker by the skin of his teeth, and RSM Latino in this race.
Barely. John McDonald just saying that's the commentator's curse for RSM Latino. That is incorrect. We never said anything complimentary to RSM Latino.
Oh, I mean, we mentioned how he did the entire Bathurst
That's
1000.
True. But we haven't spoken about him in this commentary, you know, in terms of his performance so far. So he is currently safe. Although if he were to DNF, he would be the one that knocks us over into attritional. He's currently 1 lap down and getting lapped by the other ZB racing car, I believe, of David Nedidich, who's currently running up in 3rd place after his has a little
yeah, I
brush
think that was Zach Baker struggling at the final corner. No doubt, after a bit of damage, there is the aforementioned RSM Latino, with a few more colours on his car than he had in Bathurst.
Yeah, just a couple more. Still predominantly black.
The car that he runs in Super 2, I believe.
And so Sean Allen's... Sorry to cut across here. Sean Allen's advantage is eked out a couple more tenths. He was hanging around 6.2, 6.3 tenths at the moment on the straights, which is the only place where I'm really trusting AMS's timing. So him and Kurt Stenberg seem to have just sort of settled into a bit of a rhythm at this stage.
So I guess now is a good time to sort of try and predict when we're going to see the next pit stops for some of these drivers. So Sean Allen's been running about 24 laps on a stint. He did 23 in the first stint. So that means that we would see him in around lap 73, 72. And Kurt Stenberg only doing 22 laps on the first stint. That means on a green flag stint without a warm-up lap, he would be doing about 23 laps. That's what he did in the second stint. So he would come in around about lap 68, which is actually quite is that right? Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah,
it's a huge difference in the end. It's only 1 lap difference in the first stint, but it amounts to about a 4-lap difference
in the third stop.
And I put these in a column with a gap there to show that they're not actually real pit stops, they're predicted pit stops.
Not that the viewers can see this.
If you're watching on the commentator
watching the commentator's cam, he's holding it up. Drew Reynolds just saying all the cars in the top 8 have DNFs. I assume you mean in the rest of the championship, in which case you are incorrect, because Kurt Stenberg is not DNF'd.
No, he isn't.
Out of a race. I've dropped my phone.
Do you want me to pick it up?
No, that's all good. I got it.
That's an interesting point, actually, because we had the drop round take effect before Bathurst, and it only affected the scores of 4 drivers, maybe 5. And those being Kurt Stenberg and Brody Steen and Colin Warwick and Will Devonish, who's not here tonight. Will Devonish and Oz Rob actually conspicuous by their absence tonight.
Imagine Will Devonish might have attended the Super 2s.
He did.
Because he was unable to attend this one, so...
But his teammate Ozrob too, so hopefully those two, War Race Engineering, actually doing quite well in the Teams Championship. So, hope to see them back in Sandown. But back on, further to my point, those were the only 5 drivers out of the 55 that we've had compete across the year.
Jesus.
Who actually got any benefit, or actually were affected by the drop round. It's everyone else who gets the benefit of the drop round. And the reason why that is because they didn't have any retirements.
I've just had had one of my eyes on our Discord window, and I've seen Kurt Stenberg hopping around the channels while he's still in the race. So I'm not sure.
And he's I thought he was coming into the pits on that lap. He went very, very close to the pit wall.
Maybe that was when he hopped into the race control chat, but I'm not sure. Kurt, mate, keep your mind on the driving.
Yeah,
if
just
you're listening.
catching a replay here. It looked like he was dumbing into the pits just for our benefit, but look how close. I mean,
Jesus.
In the end, it was probably quite safe, but it looked
very close
from my perspective like he nearly drove into the pit wall.
Particular race in Formula 1 Codemasters Stairs where you and I had a cracking battle at Nürburgring.
I remember it well.
All came undone as I drove directly into the pit entry wall.
Why did you do that?
I didn't do it on purpose.
You understeered into it.
Believe it was on.
It was raining.
I was on old primes. It was raining. Oh, Sean Allen a little bit Larry there.
It's my first or second win or something, so it's a very dear memory for me.
Not for me.
No, but I did enjoy battling you hard. For a race win. That's not supposed to sound weird.
No, it's just the way that you said hard was like it felt like there was a connotation. Obviously not.
There was no connotation.
The connotation was felt for me alone.
So Sean Allen, that gap is staying very, very consistent now. Kurt Stenberg about 1/10 of a second faster on the previous lap, but it ebbs and flows.
Seems to be shaking out pretty much even, doesn't it?
And
Kurt Stenberg's hopped up into the broadcast channel.
I don't know that we want to speak to him during the middle of the race, lest we do something like distract Dick Johnson off the road, losing him.
Continuing to be bewildered by him moving around Discord channels while driving.
I wonder if one of the shortcut keys for
possibly,
or maybe his
his
up and down gears are.
We've got him in the cockpit. Kurt, can you explain yourself?
It's Car doing it for me.
Oh, okay.
Pardon?
It's
Chris Carr down there doing it for me.
Do you appreciate him, or are you requesting?
Oh, that's...
Hey? I believe we've lost.
I think we've lost Kurt Stenberg there. So
no, is he back?
I can't. Sorry, I can't hear Stairs.
You can't. He can't hear me. He can't hear me. That's probably because I haven't got Discord connected to that microphone. Well, best of luck with the rest of it. We don't want to distract you, so.
Don't want me to crash, so you can have another DNF.
We don't really want another DNF.
You get back to concentrating on racing, Kurt, and we'll concentrate on finding something to talk about, mate. Good luck with the race. Kurt Stenberg currently running solidly in second, and I'm not sure if it's. I'm waiting to see how it shakes out. I reckon he lost about 3 or 4 tenths talking to us then.
It always made me nervous when I was a kid and I used to talk to the drivers in the middle of the race. I think Dick Johnson was probably the only driver I'm aware of who didn't lose time while talking to commentators, but nonetheless.
It'd be like, can you imagine if they piped in like Martin and Crofty into Lewis Hamilton when he was battling for position or something in Formula 1? He'd throw an absolute fit if he had someone going, and Lewis, how are you feeling in this stage in the race? He'd be like, God, just leave me alone. I can't do it, Lewis.
I'll probably complain about his tyres. Honestly, they could get a tape recorder and just put that on loop.
These aren't going to last. Continues to drive for 45 laps.
Sean Allen. Is that us or is that him? That was a
No,
weird lag. That
looks
wasn't
like
just my eyes.
No, so he's lost about 2 seconds there. That looks like one of those things where it just holds you on track in a certain point.
Hopefully not a sign of things to come for Sean
Hopefully
Allen.
not.
Sometimes that can be the sign of your game starting to fall apart, but it hasn't been followed by another one. But that gap, you're right, has come down significantly, losing 2 seconds in that middle sector alone. And Sean Allen doesn't need that.
No.
I don't think he needs me to tell
him that he doesn't need that. Yeah.
No.
He's he's been. It's just one of those. We've had that happen in Apex Rear Wing as well. But usually it'll sometimes be while you're battling with someone, and then you'll suddenly disappear and wind up 1.5 seconds behind them on track. It's quite annoying when it does happen. I imagine it's quite annoying for Sean Allen now, losing those 2 seconds.
Well, based on our numbers, Kurt Stenberg should be coming into the pits at the end of this lap. We've just started lap 68. Kurt Stenberg doing 23 laps on the previous stint. And at the end of this lap, he will have done 23 laps on his second stint. But Sean Allen, we think, can go for another 4 laps.
Yeah, he's just seems to be able to manage his fuel out there at the front. And he never looks as leery as the rest of them do going through that back chicane. He always seems to be quite in control of his car, which is something that is greatly to be desired.
What will be interesting is if Kurt Stenberg gets a few laps on fresh tyres and Sean Allen is struggling on older tyres, there may be the potential for an undercut.
Yeah, very much so.
And even though Kurt Stenberg is likely to have a longer pit stop at the end of this race, that could be crucial. Time will tell. That's a juicy little thought, though, isn't it? It is a juicy little thought. It's
absolutely juicy.
Just checking if my mic was...
Felt quite disgusted with myself hearing myself.
Well, Kurt Stenberg is in the pits as expected, so the forecast has come to fruition. So Kurt Stenberg at the end of lap 68 comes into the pit lane. So lap 68, our predicted pit stop becomes an actual pit stop.
Very well predicted, Stairs.
Thank you. Very proud of myself.
Who else did we have pit on lap 45?
Oh,
Nobody.
Who didn't we? Yeah, the answer is nobody.
So everyone else made it at least another lap. So next up, we should be seeing David Nadadich. He pit on lap 46. And then Zach Baker on lap 47.
Oh, Sean Allen. Sean Allen!
Oh, no!
Into the wall!
Into the wall!
Just as we cut away from him.
At the end of the back straight, he's lost at least 3 or 4 seconds there, probably more. He's going to be behind Kurt Stenberg once these pit stops shake out, I reckon.
That is going to be a change for the lead. It's a very bizarre way of seeing that happen.
It
just caught the inside wall. Brody Steen did the exact same thing. It's a race on Oz.
Catching.
I wonder if the size of those ZBs is just a little bit... It looks a bit different from the inside with the cockpit views to the FGX Falcon or indeed the Nissan Altima. Making excuses I am for...
Sean Allen into the pits. This is much earlier than we were expecting.
We have a bit of damage. He will have damage to fix as Kurt Stenberg goes past Brody Steen to put him another lap down.
So
a lap down. Not
Kurt
Stenberg
Stenberg
lap down.
just entering the last sector of the track as Sean Allen has come to a stop in his pit box. So this is going to be a lengthy pit stop if he's fixing damage as well.
Yeah.
Kurt Stenberg just coming up to the last corner now. Sean Allen's still stationary. And he started moving. So it hasn't been as big a loss as I was expecting, actually.
I think he was covering off the undercut. I mean, he's already lost the position.
He's lost the position, but it's going to be... It's not going to be that big a difference because the pit exit shortcuts the first chicane.
There he goes.
So there goes Kurt Stenberg. It'll be a few seconds. And it is indeed about 2 seconds at the moment by the looks of it. Oh! And Kurt Stenberg, huge moment coming out of the chicane, so that won't help.
He nearly lost it himself.
He absolutely did. So 1.5 seconds or thereabouts is what it's shaken out to between Sean Allen and Kurt Stenberg, which really, considering the accident that Sean Allen had, that's probably not too bad, really. I was expecting that gap to be much bigger. And
Brody Steen's going to get out of the way straight away for his teammate Sean Allen.
Good man.
As you would expect him to, but now the gap is 2 seconds in Kurt Stenberg's favour, as Kurt Stenberg has just gone a little bit deep.
John McDonald saying absolute scenes. I believe that was when Sean Allen had his accident.
Yeah, no kidding.
Ty Jones hopping in with T11 strikes again. Absolutely. And Thomas Paul saying cockpit view on the ZB is awful compared to the FGX. Can confirm. So a little bit of a bit of confirmation there for you, what you said, Stairs. In the interior of that ZB, I believe it's
I was just
custom
talking
made.
shit, but you know.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I did have a drive of the ZB around Bathurst, and it's very difficult to see out of it compared to the Mustang and the Ford.
Quite
which is
similar to
Mustang is a Ford. I mean the Falcon.
quite similar to a real Commodore, judging by the way people driving them drive. In my experience,
I did borrow my housemate's Commodore last week when my car was on the fritz, and you don't so much as sort of sit in it like you are. It's sort of like an old grandma with your hands. Maybe I'm just short, but anyway, I was very much cocooned in this bucket of a seat.
very much cocooned in the bucket. Stenberg gone a little bit deep, and Sean Allen, he's putting the pressure on. He's cut that down to about 1.1 seconds, so he seems to have a bit more pace than Kurt Stenberg at the moment. Tyres are a couple of laps fresher, or one lap fresher.
The thing is, they're now almost essentially on the same strategy, but we do know that Sean Allen is using less fuel than Kurt Stenberg.
That wasn't a long enough stop to repair damage, surely.
No, I don't think he did.
So he must have just, as you say, he was just covering off the undercut, but in the end wasn't worth it because he's lost the position. He might as well have gone a bit longer and then had the advantage on strategy.
Well, damage has actually been set at 35% in this server, so that has
probably wise.
Probably to alleviate any chances of us having a attritional race.
That's an important question. What is the... You say...
I was waiting for that response.
Eliminate the chances of having an attritional race. Currently sitting at 7 runners out of 14. John McDonald was asking, what is the critical lap, Clarko?
It is 77.
Lap 77.
Although, having said that, that was based on our numbers of 24, 25, 26 lap stints, so it's probably going to be more likely to be around about lap...
Oh,
who's that?
You've had someone crash.
Yes, I have. Who is that?
That is one of the ZB
ZB
Racing.
cars.
That is Zach Baker, just going from bad to worse for him. He's... I reckon he's got some damage as well. I'm seeing puffs of smoke from that car.
Hayden Schultz is in the pit lane.
So, yeah, he's definitely got damage on his right-hand side. That is absolutely does not want to turn that car. So, he will be coming into the pits, I imagine, on this lap for damage and fuel. So, that'll be lap 71 for Zach Baker. Which, he's due for a pit stop. So, there are worse times to have an accident.
And there is Zach Baker coming in. So, lap 71. And... that's a 24-lap stint.
You know, I think there's a little bit of sexism on display here. None of those trees are fathers.
I like a good dad joke, but that was shocking.
Literally a dad joke. I'm proud of that one. Actually, I am proud of that one.
I thought you said you were proud of that one.
No, I said I wasn't, but then I changed my mind swiftly because you groaned in such pain.
Oh, actually, that's really what
proud.
you do ask for in a good dad joke.
Yeah, we are a resident, not alien, but semi-alien. Xeris certainly knows his way around a good dad joke.
But the irony of the sign saying "chill" there is that this is the Gold Coast and it's warm there.
Ah, yes.
Yes.
John McDonald.
Horses have 6 legs.
Because they got 2 back legs and 4 at the front, and
With
4
your-
legs at the front.
Exactly. Relevant with the Melbourne Cup being relevant today. I
Hashtag
suppose.
up to the cup. I reckon Sean Allen just
Well, let's
lost
not be
his-
controversial, shall
I
we?
reckon he just lost. I mean, I feel like thinking, horse racing is a bit cruel and barbaric isn't particularly controversial.
I eat meat, so I can't stand on my high horse.
I mean, I also eat meat, but there's a difference between treating animals cruelly for sustenance and treating animals cruelly to wear a fancy hat and drink a lot. But maybe that's just me. John McDonald saying, it's been a long day when the dad joke is pulled.
I wonder what horse tastes like.
I mean, I imagine it tastes quite chewy because it'd be mostly muscle, I imagine. They're quite lean animals. Not like eating a cow.
Delicious.
Don't have a cow, man. Say vegans. but I disagree.
Well, you do you, boo, and we'll move right along.
You do you, boo. That gap between Sean Allen and Kurt Stenberg hasn't exploded or contracted. It is remaining at about 1 second.
Arasim Latino has made his pit stop, so that puts
that
him on
one.
lap 71. I think we've missed a few of them, actually.
There he is. He's just coming out of the pits now. So who have we not?
No, actually, we've got all of them but Brody Steen.
Who probably hasn't actually stopped yet because he seems to be running very long on his stints.
Now, you're still a lap down, so we only have 3 cars left on the lead lap, which is a bit of a surprise.
Only the real questions are being asked by Stairs. What does horse taste like? That's from John McDonald, who's probably enjoying a bit of a bit of a light flavour of filling compared to the.
That is
Automobilista
HORSE, horse. I was just
What
just,
do horse
just for
taste
clarification.
like?
Well,
I'm googling it. What does horse taste
I
like?
don't want to pay to find out.
Oh, I see you've got a voucher up on your corkboard there for a lady bar.
No. Well, that's not a. Yeah, that's a lady bar. That's probably gone out of date now.
I imagine.
Wow.
What does it say?
Just says wow.
Oh, it just says wow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a woman gripping another woman's booty.
It's not a place where you would frequent to find a lady of the night. It is merely just what I like to refer to as a skin bar.
Here we go. This is a pertinent so the week have reported 6 descriptions of what horse meat actually tastes like. No, I didn't know we needed 6 descriptions of it.
Number 5 will surprise you.
Looks as if a bit sweet in taste, a blend between beef and venison.
I don't know what venison tastes like.
Use it similar to beef, putting it in sandwiches or serving it in a slab. A 40-year-old woman interviewed by Death and Taxes reported, it's like eating really good beefsteak, she said.
Ooh, so we've just saw Kurt Stenberg rub the wall on the exit of 10. This is still a race happening, Madbird. We've gone.
I got distracted.
We've gone right up the rabbit hole, right down the rabbit hole,
right up the horse hole.
Have you ever seen The Godfather?
It's a horse's head.
Yes, I know. Not the version I watched. Nah, never mind. So we haven't seen Brody Steen pit yet. So he came in last on lap 51. So he should actually come in lap 76 or 77.
Yeah, he's been running consistently a few laps longer. So
he's losing so much time doing that. He's not going to get his lap back.
Not coming in this time. So
no, we should be able to go 2 more laps on our numbers.
But when have Sean Allen and Kurt Stenberg have pit on lap 68 or 69? So
yeah,
if
68 and 69 respectively, with Sean Allen more recently in the pits.
So extrapolate from that. Kurt Stenberg does 22 more laps from there, so he pits.
Oh, big moment there, Kurt Stenberg on his roof. Sorry to give you a
heart attack.
Well, I'm a what? Sorry.
A bloody heart attack.
He still hasn't been rectified. There he is.
He
He's going to lose an absolute bucket load of time, much more than Sean Allen. I'm not laughing because of Kurt Stenberg. I'm laughing because of the damage I've done to your cardiac. Let's catch a replay. He's been threatening that a number of times throughout this race, hasn't he? Here is the replay.
Has.
And just way too much curb that time, and over she went. Because it landed on its roof, and not too many parts of the roof are used for traction, he might be able to get away without too much damage to that car.
John McDonald just saying, I was tabbed out. You just made me jump out of my chair. So apologies. He did. Imagine sitting next to that. So I quit.
when something happens in a race, you want someone to react to it.
Oh, absolutely.
That's the problem with a lot of commentators.
I was busy trying to do head maths and figure out when Kurt Stenberg would next be pitting. And you scared the absolute bejesus out of me. But I quickly looked to see, is David Nenadic going to put pressure on Kurt Stenberg? No, he's got a 42-second lead over third-place man David Nenadic. So this is really a two-horse race at this stage, and those horses have become about 10 seconds apart rather than 1 second apart, and the other way around. So John McDonald saying he literally fell out of his chair.
Oh, dearie me.
Fantastic.
I hope your coccyx is all right.
Indeed. And the other one starting with C. what was I saying? My God. Kurt Stenberg. So he will be pitting at around we reckon around lap 90 at this stage, if he continues at this sort of fuel rate. And Sean Allen would be able to make it to about lap. So he managed 25 laps.
Here
on
comes
his second
Brody
stint.
Steen. So lap 77, that's about what we were expecting for Brody Steen.
So he can definitely.
Yeah, he can do it on one more stop.
He can make it to the end.
Yep.
Without stopping from here.
Beg your pardon, yes.
Yeah,
to the end, not with one more stop.
So he's got a stop in hand now, but he is, as you say, a lap down. So it won't. I don't think it won't promote him up into the podium places at this stage, but it will certainly get him a couple of. It will certainly get him a couple of positions. What are you giggling
Oh,
at?
I just reread John McDonald's.
Just all caps. I was
My
tapped out. You
apologies,
made
John.
me jump out of my chair.
The capitals was what got me.
Just the urgency that he. Oh God. So Sean Allen, if he does 25 laps from there, then he would be pitting at around lap 95. So he would need to be saving about 7 laps worth of fuel in this last stint, which is a tall order. So we expect to see Sean Allen and Kurt Stenberg in again.
I just looked over at the other screen. Sean Allen was all up on 2 wheels through the first chicane, but he does have now
Let's not
a
have a
10-second lead over Kurt Stenberg, much bigger than the lead Kurt Stenberg briefly had before he put it onto his roof.
Yeah, and that error was to an extent. That error was probably forced a little bit by the pressure that Sean Allen was putting on Kurt Stenberg, because he was within a second of him, and he wasn't.
Sean Allen did make an error himself. That was why Kurt Stenberg.
That's why Kurt Stenberg got ahead.
Yeah.
So it's tit for tat, serve for serve. It's cool. Kurt Stenberg very messy over the chicane, so he's probably a little bit cautious into there now, which is throwing him off some. So hopefully we don't see it happen again.
Yeah, we're looking at Brody Steen on screen at the moment. And the reason I want to draw your attention to him is because he doesn't have to make that next pit stop. He may well end up in 4th place because Aiden Schultz is 25 seconds up the road. In fact, quite likely that Aiden Schultz will drop behind Brody Steen once he makes his pit stop. Aiden Schultz last came in on lap 70, and that was a short stint, only about 22 laps. So we would expect then to see him in around about lap 92 for his last pit stop. And then we'll see what he can do with fresh tyres, but that is very, very likely to drop him behind Brody Steen.
Yeah, absolutely. And then from Aiden Schultz, how far up is it to the next punter? 56
David
seconds.
Nenadich.
So that's unlikely to So yeah,
that's probably not going to
Brody
change.
Steen unlikely to hop up into 3rd place, even with David Nenadich needing another pit stop.
And that would be David Nenadich's 2nd best result.
2nd at Bathurst, obviously.
Yeah. Well, David
along with
Nenadich's
Zach Baker.
podium in Bathurst was his first podium.
That's surprising to me, because he always seems to be, he's always someone we're talking about. He's always up there battling. But I guess when you got the Kurt Stenbergs, the Ethan Warrens, and the Jake Maloney's of the world, sort of hogging the podium to themselves, it's hard to get up there. And of course, very well done to Zach Baker and David Nenadich for a superb drive at Bathurst. Probably could have pressured for the win.
I think they were probably the surprise package. They definitely had the pace to win. They got the fastest lap of the race.
They were the only ones to dip into 203 land, the much vaunted 203 land. So
no one else did it.
Nope. And if they hadn't had to spend, it must have been 10, 15 laps.
Yeah, I looked at I remember when I was doing the highlights package for that Madbird, I was looking at the time stamps on the video, and that battle went for about 30 minutes.
I remember because it had been going for quite a while. While you and I believe it was you and Michael Zalavari were in the box, and then Michael and I tagged out, and I hopped in, and it kept going for a decent length of time for my stint in the box. So. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, going for about half an hour, and that's all time that they were stuck behind the slower fuel-saving car of Ethan Warren, that they could have been catching up to the Trans-Tasman guys. So
yeah, that undercut strategy from Colin Warwick and Ethan Warren, although it was somewhat, it certainly gave us a lot of interest towards the back end of that race. It completely screwed the ZB guys.
Absolutely.
Not that it's not that they were not allowed to do such a thing, but nonetheless, I think
not
Kurt
like
Stenberg and Jake Maloney were smiling.
It's not like their teammates, broke to a stop coming down Conrod Straight, and the entire pack had to pile up behind them.
No one would do that.
No one would do that, and they get fined $250,000 for it.
I think they can afford it.
Yeah, probably.
Parent company has just bought IndyCar and the
Bought
Indianapolis Motor
that-
Speedway.
Doesn't that like I
Conflict
saw
of
that-
interest? Is
Yeah,
it?
I saw that headline and I was thinking like, that'd be like Ferrari buying Formula One, as if Ferrari don't already basically own the fucking own the sandpit in Formula One. Getting their long-standing team bonus payout every bloody year and stuff.
Well, it won't make much difference if the cost cap goes through.
All the top teams will be. I'm pretty sure it has gone through. I think the 31st was the
deadline.
The deadline for them to bring out what the regulations are going to be. They had all before that to negotiate it and stuff. So
I sure hope so.
So cross fingers. Ferrari budget. John McDonald just saying in the chat. Just Ferrari budget. Accurate. What was I going to say? Oh, so all the top teams will be scrambling to build their fancy facilities and stuff before 2021, I imagine.
Ferrari International Assistance. John McDonald says in the live chat.
FIA.
There is that, but also, I mean, the FIA did spend the predominant majority of the early 2000s trying to stop Michael Schumacher from winning championships with various rule changes there. Who's that? Brody Steen. On the other screen. We'll just catch a replay.
I saw a race on Oz car on its side, and my heart was in my mouth for a moment. And Kurt Stenberg having to, you're not seeing this, sorry viewers, but Kurt Stenberg having to dodge around the recovering Brody Steen.
We will try and catch a replay as nothing else is happening right now.
So he's just gone through through the back chicane and then and round up on his roof. Kurt Stenberg comes through and finds him right across the track. He luckily dove forwards to get out of the way.
More than anything else.
He
committed to that side though. Brody Steen must have seen him. I'm just looking. I'm trying to look in Discord to see. They're not actually in the same channel.
No, they're not chatting. So not sure what. I reckon that might have just been Brody Steen realising.
In fact, we've got a car in the pits. It's one of the Race on Oz cars.
Must be Brody. No, it's not Brody Steen. It's Sean Allen. Sean Allen's pit on lap 84.
So early pit stop. I mean,
So
we knew that he was going to make another pit stop, and he's decided to do it early and get the benefit of those fresh tyres.
So that's both Race on Oz guys to the end now from here. I wonder if we'll see Kurt Stenberg
on
being
different strategies
pushed into the pits as well.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? There's probably no point to extend this stint any more than you have to. We know that he will have to come out again.
I guess the only thing is, if a safety car did come out, then he could save a lot of fuel under that. But again, if we were going to have a safety car, I would have thought we'd have one by now. David Nadich in the pits as well on lap 84. So everyone hopping in to get their last pit stops out of the way. John McDonald, Days of Thunder vibes of Kurt Stenberg punching the throttle through the smoke.
Yeah, it was a bit cold trickle, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
It's a bit like what happens when I don't shake the drops off enough.
Oh my goodness. Lovely images there.
Happy with that one.
Happy with that one. It's not like you wear quite dark pants. You imagine what it's like in these sort of like beigey, very white man uniform pants that I have.
Beginner mistake.
Yeah, that well, I have to wear slacks of some description, so
you can't wear dark.
I could wear dark ones, but I don't know. These just always seem to be cheaper. That's probably why.
Why are they cheaper? They are the fashion, I think, aren't they? Sort of tan, light brown kind.
Oh, probably. For wankers.
Well, you're wearing them.
Yeah, well, yeah. It's not.
You just shat in your own bed.
I mean, I'm sorry. What in my own bed?
Oh, shat.
Thought we were going for a clean broadcast. Says the man that's sworn several times.
Beg your pardon. Well, it's a long race.
Kurt Stenberg.
We're trying to see how this undercut attempt happens.
Yeah, so he's coming up through the last corner now. He's got 35 seconds on Sean Allen. Will he come into the pits?
Sean Allen with a bit of traffic, just
Looks
to
like
negotiate.
he's coming across. Yes, he is. No, he's not. He's just that line.
He does that
takes,
every time, yeah.
Very, very aggressive pull across the track.
He's trying to dummy the car that's nowhere near him on the track there. Big slide there for Kurt Stenberg, but he gathers it up. He goes on his way, and he probably didn't even skip a heartbeat
He
there.
gathers it up like cheesels that have fallen to the floor. And gets that sort of horrible dust all over his fingers, but
Yeah.
you know.
Apparently specifically designed to be addictive, that stuff.
I mean, I believe it.
Yeah.
It's, you know, they say Pringles that once you open a can of Pringles, like you.
Ooh,
Oh,
who
we've
is
got
that?
someone crashed ahead of us.
It's ahead of Kurt Stenberg, and we'll just try and pick him
No
up.
one's stationary, so it wasn't a huge thing. But who's ahead of Kurt Stenberg on track? One of the ZB cars. I reckon that might be Kurt. That is Zach Baker, I reckon.
You're right. It is Zach Baker.
That he's usually the stronger of the two ZB racing cars. He's been.
I was gonna say,
he's
yeah.
been in the wars this particular race.
Yeah, when I was singing David Nenadich's praises, I mean, with no disrespect to David Nenadich, it is usually Zach Baker ahead out of those two, but we did see him on his roof earlier in this race, and you can see how banged up that car is.
It appears to be crabbing a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not
coming down the
surprised.
straight.
Oh!
Oh.
Oh, that's a bit of lag there, I think, for
Kurt Stenberg.
Kurt Stenberg.
Gave me a slight heart attack.
Just a little bit.
Ethan Warren hopping in saying, "Go Kurt."
Well, Kurt Stenberg still has to make another pit stop, so the order on track at the moment is a little bit artificial because Sean Allen has made his last pit stop and Kurt Stenberg is 31 seconds behind, having not come in yet.
Speaking of cheesels, I've just noticed how amped the flux on your laptop is.
Yeah,
It's
I think once it gets to
basically
near 10
orange.
o'clock, it forces you. It tries to force you to go to bed by making your screen almost unwatchable. There's a bit of a gradient to the screen above that, and then the screen above that, which has no flux on at all. But do read up on blue light filters if you happen to be interested in such things.
highly recommend the program Flux. Even just during the day, if you work in an office environment, just having the blue sucked out that tiny bit just reduces the eye strain quite a bit.
Well, the idea is that you are supposed to get blue light during the day because that sort of helps you stay awake.
Well, I mean, I just stay awake at my job because I'm, getting people yelling at me.
No, they would do it.
Even
I mean,
though
you get people yelling at you here. Like when
That's
Kurt
very true.
Stenberg finds his way onto his
roof and you scream and I fall off my chair, or John McDonald falls off his chair.
Kurt hasn't reacted straight away to this pit
No.
stop. It's almost like he's banking on a late safety car, have fresh tyres. I mean, because we know that he can go a fair distance further from where he came in on lap 68.
Lap 90, we reckon he could go to. 'cause
Okay, so not a fair distance.
so another lap or
Another
two,
lap or
maybe.
Well, let's watch him.
He's
He's starting to struggle on those tyres.
He's a
isn't
little
he?
bit leery, isn't he? Yeah. He's a little bit of a lock up there, and not as big as the lock up from Zach Baker behind, who goes directly into the wall.
Oh no.
That poor car is not having the best day on the circuit. And speaking of you and me battling, as we were talking about earlier at Nürburgring, we had a battle here
Here he comes.
for in Kurt Stenberg into the pits. We had a battle here for a win.
Yes, you've chosen a really bad time to bring this up because we're having race leader Kurt Stenberg pit and Sean Allen most likely to reclaim that first place, given that he had a 10-second lead prior to the pit stops.
I feel like it's slightly academic. Yeah, I don't think he's gonna relinquish that position. Sean Allen
Kurt
exiting
Stenberg.
the last corner now.
He is. Kurt Stenberg's only just got moving right now. We'll probably see him go through the shot just there. Here he comes down the line, and Kurt Stenberg is still trundling along to the end of the pit lane at 40 kilometers an hour. Sean Allen going through the first corner, and now Kurt Stenberg is allowed to release the shackles on that Trans-Tasman Racing at ZB Commodore.
I had a slight moment looking at Sean Allen in then second and David Nadich in third. He was running right behind. He's currently running right behind Sean Allen. However, there is a lap between them, so I thought we'd missed something enormous, and David Nadich had caught right up to Sean Allen, but hasn't occurred.
So that just leaves Kurt and Sean as the only drivers on the lead lap.
Yeah, and Kurt Stenberg, the way that he's driving, I'm not sure how long he'll stay on that lead lap. Very leery over the chicane, but what else is new? no offense to Kurt Stenberg, he seems to have a very it seems to have a very eclectic line through there, and always gives me a minor heart attack. As do all the Cheezels though.
Oh, yes.
Oh yeah.
So Aiden Schultz now, it's hard to tell from live timing because it fluctuates so much. The gap, it's between 20 and 30 seconds.
It's unreliable to the point of almost being useless, except for if two cars are on the same straight.
Yeah.
Because I think it seems to calculate the longest possible route through the chicanes, which of course the cars aren't taking. They're cutting the chicanes constantly. So I reckon that it gets very confused. Which, in fairness, it's Gold Coast.
Brody Steen. Didn't we have Brody Steen ahead of Zach Baker?
Yes, we did, because
what has become of...
Because Brody Steen was because we were talking about how he would take fourth position from Aiden Schultz.
And I was just monitoring Aiden Schultz's progress to see when he comes into the pit lane. We should see it in the next lap or two, but...
So he's about 12 seconds behind Zach Baker, who's about 40 seconds behind Aiden Schultz. So yeah, Brody Steen's had a big moment somewhere missed.
We'll try and get his lap times up and see if we can see what's happened, because as much as we were talking about how Zach Baker's been in the wars today, he's still sort of there, perched, ready to take that position, although he does need to make another pit stop as well. So he is likely... Brody Steen, that is, to gain that place on Zach Baker. Whether he gains that position on Aiden Schultz, though, it's not as sure a thing as it was before. But Aiden Schultz is now in the pit lane, so we'll watch and see.
Absolutely. So it's still about 40 seconds, the gap was about just over 40 seconds between Brody Steen and Aiden Schultz. So he might make that position up.
Zach Baker's coming down the straight now, so he will definitely. Make that position up on Aiden Schultz.
Brody Steen just entering the last corner.
Yeah, he has to pit again. Brody Steen doesn't have to pit again.
And Schultz just exiting the pit lane now, so he can get on the throttle. And Brody Steen still has an entered pit shot in the background.
Yeah,
so
it's quite a long way behind.
Quite a long way behind.
And Aiden Schultz will have fresher tyres. So that looks like that battle's going to go the way of Aiden Schultz. So that means
shame for Brody Steen, because he's...
Baker pits, Schultz will go up to 4th place, and Brody Steen likely to go up to 5th place.
It's a bit of a shame for Steen, because he's done a good job of making those stints last, and hang out there for as long as possible. Kurt Stenberg must have pit.
Yeah, we saw that.
Did we see that? Oh, yeah. Sorry, you haven't got written on. You haven't got written on your thing.
I beg your pardon.
That's what's confused me. I've grown accustomed to the manic scribblings of my co-commentator, and when they're not there,
I think because it was now completely academic, as Kurt Stenberg has a few moments over the curb. What's new?
What else is new?
Yes, we were covering the fact that Sean Allen retook the lead of the race as Brody Steen. You were trying to talk to me about a battle that we had, something like that, when Kurt Stenberg came in.
Right about where Kurt Stenberg is now.
At lap 91 or so.
Yeah.
No, actually, it is lap 90 now, so it's 91 now at this lap.
Right around where Kurt Stenberg is now, we were battling for the lead in a reverse grid race, I think.
Let's cut to Kurt Stenberg, so that makes sense.
It no longer makes sense because he's since moved past the point where I was talking about.
Oh yes, but surely our audience could merely backwards extrapolate.
Laps 13 and 14. Turns 13 and 14.
Backwards extrapolate to the place where he was about 20 seconds before we cut to him.
To make an incredibly long and painful story short, I had a slight spin and it was enough to let you through for the win, and I was quite annoyed.
That was for 3rd place.
Was it for 3rd place?
Yeah. Oh, I'd had a shocker. Got into goof in the first corner.
I don't know.
Trying to be careful and.
I don't know how I talked myself from fighting for a 3rd place to fighting for a 1st place. Kurt Stenberg very hairy there.
Yeah, wiped his car on the wall there. Not too hard. Certainly not the worst thing that we've seen there today, and certainly not the worst thing we've seen from him there today.
Yeah. Lewis or Loose89, who is of course Lewis Wedding, saying should turn real time splits off, and it will help with the timing. believe that's an option in the ACD menu, which we might.
That is, but we do. I mean, it's normally not this.
It's normally not an issue.
It's not. Yeah, it's not normally this bad.
Yeah, it's just Gold Coast being a poor track, and the chicane's messing it up, I believe.
And I do like having the times in real time, especially if you do see a time coming down very, very quickly indeed.
RSM Latino, sorry, just coming out of the pits on lap 91 for him.
But I take your point, Lewis.
Lap 90 for him, rather. Yep.
It's a good point, well made.
Good point, well made. Ethan Warren, if you're still in the chat, mate, after I read out that he said go Kurt just before. Where are you?
Said he couldn't make it. I think he must have had something on, but it's a
Couldn't
big shame
make it.
because Ethan Warren, Bathurst accepted, has been the form man in the back half of this championship, and if not for a poor start with a few DNFs, could have very much been the championship leader at this point. without that.
He's won. He's. I'm just looking at the results sheet now. I believe that's Ethan Warren, isn't it? Yes, it is. So he's. So the last 7 rounds have been second, first, 11th, first, second, first, and third at Bathurst. So that's apart from that 11th at Townsville, he has been on the podium for the last 13 races. So that's quite a run of form.
So it's 8 victories, and his brother Dane has 3. So
between
them,
the
they have
Warrens-
11 victories out of what are we up to now? 23 races, nearly 50%.
So Dane Warren, of course, is in the Gfinity V8s
The sim
series,
racing series with
Yeah.
iRacing, yes.
along with Hobbo
Brenton Hobson.
and several other, and Emily Jones,
Jared Filsell, who was watching along for the Bathurst 1000. I believe he linked the stream to quite a few people, which we're very grateful for. So, Jared, if you are still watching, we thank you very much for that. That was much appreciated. Got a lot of exposure for this championship.
Absolutely, and John McDonald, quite harsh in the chat. His brother drives in E-Series. What are you doing, Ethan?
Only enough room for one Warren in that series, apparently.
Can you imagine if both of them were there?
But you mentioned Emily Jones. She's another one who she won the opening round of this championship back in Adelaide. I mentioned before the 8 winners that we've had in this championship so far. Emily Jones, Jake Maloney, Kurt Stenberg, of course, Ethan and Dane Warren, and Sean Allen, current race leader, looking like he's going to add to his tally of 2 race wins with 3. And to be honest, a race win here is worth 2 in terms of points. It's 300 points as opposed to 150 for a super sprint win. So it's like getting 4 wins.
I remember, I think it was Automobilista Australia around Montreal. We did V8s, and Emily Jones, Emily on one of the last laps, she lost her rear wing, and was fighting for the lead with no rear wing and thus no downforce, going through the wall of champions every lap, and it was bloody entertaining. Hunt that up if you can. Zach Baker in the pits on
That
lap.
was Montreal, I think, just by the... If you are hunting for that on the Stairs
I said
channel.
Montreal, didn't I?
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear that. Anyway, in case you didn't hear it like I didn't hear it, that's where you will find that. Montreal was about the middle of last year. Zach Baker is in the
Christ,
pits.
is that how long? Is that only how long ago it was? It feels much longer than that.
We've only been doing this commentary thing for the last 2 years with Automobilista.
That's bloody. That's scary.
Ah, Brenton. G'day, Brenton Foley.
As we're sort of like Brenton. And
So just to update you on something that's happening in the race, Zach Baker has indeed lost the 2 positions with that pit stop that we were expecting him to, down to 6th place.
10 seconds, 6 seconds between Brody Steen and Aiden Schultz. So that position might still change hands, because that gap, I reckon, was longer than that when Aiden Schultz came out of the pits.
Aiden's got the newer tyres.
What are the lap times like recently?
Well, that wasn't very good from Aiden Schultz. He just hit the wall. But apart from that, he has been about half a second faster than Brody Steen.
Okay.
Brody Steen probably fuel saving a bit, but I wonder if that collision with the wall has cost Aiden Schultz.
Yeah, potentially.
well, it certainly will have cost him time, but in terms of damage ongoing throughout the rest of the laps of this race, which there aren't that many left now, just 5 laps to go. That's gone by a lot quicker than I was actually expecting it to, so that's certainly something that Sean Allen will be happy to see, as he is about to put his teammate Brodie Steen one more lap down.
And Brendan Foley there in the chat just saying the Montreal race was crazy.
That was. There was another battle going on between himself, Phil Boak, and I believe Lewis Wedding was involved in that. Further to the Trans-Tasman battle between Kurt Stenberg and Emily Jones, and Jake Maloney was involved in that one as well.
I do remember that being an absolute cracker.
That was.
I loved that one. But Foley, of course, will be joining myself on track and yourself in our Discord server over at Apex Brewing tomorrow night for the second round of the 4 decades of Imola. 1988 turbo F1 cars.
Yeah, we got underway a couple of weeks ago with the 1975 cars at the 1972 version of Imola, matching up years and cars this time, with 1988 being the version of the circuit we're using, and the 88 cars it's the inbuilt Formula cars
Classic
from 1988, and with a skin pack. Looks quite realistic, actually. Probably a few little details of cars that are missing because they're all identical in body shape, but the liveries are pretty good from what I've seen so far.
Yeah, absolutely. So everyone watching, make sure you if you're interested, tune in tomorrow night on the Apex Rear Wing channel. We've got Stairs and Maddie in the box commentating on that one.
Maddie being Matt Dunlop, not
Maddie
yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, exactly. John McDonald just saying Sean Allen will crash into turn 11 on lap
Drive-through
101.
penalty for Kurt Stenberg.
What? So that must be track cuts.
That will be track cuts. So that is certainly good news for Sean Allen, but bad news, of course, for Kurt Stenberg. So he won't lose second place because David Nenadic is a full lap behind him. Let's catch replay. Probably would have been before that. I imagine coming through the hairpin. He got caught up behind Brodie Steen. I don't think it... No, it had nothing to do with Brodie Steen. Maybe a little bit of concentration lost there from Kurt Stenberg. Harsh to get a penalty for track cutting there. He was completely out of control. But
that's Automobilista for you.
And here is Kurt Stenberg serving that drive-through penalty. So Sean Allen can now absolutely cruise to the end of this race now. 100 laps under his belt, just 2 to go.
David Nenadic has unlapped himself from Kurt Stenberg, so good for him.
But not from Sean Allen, so he still will appear on our timing screens as a lap down. Because he is. And Sean Allen...
Makes sense.
And Kurt Stenberg, I should say, having served that drive-through penalty, emerges from the pit lane.
Yeah, I was about to say, John McDonald just in chat saying should remove that. I would have thought Kurt Stenberg is in the race control chat with Wayne Carr.
It's a bit late now.
Probably could have had it's too late now, but probably could have had a word to him saying, like, you know, like if I'd actually cut the track, fair dinkum, but I was sideways, like out of control going through the chicane. Can you maybe knock that one off for me, mate? But
he did have 9 prior ones.
He did, yeah. He's had 10 chances beforehand, and that is the 11th one.
Although, if any of those were BS, to use a term that the kids use these days, I'm sure Chris Carr could have removed that one for him.
I'm sure he could have. Foley in the chat just saying hardly a track cut. # just AMS things. Very much so.
Yeah.
Last lap, Stairs.
Gracious me, that's snuck up on us.
It's lap 102. Sean Allen 40 seconds clear of Kurt Stenberg in the lead. So if he's going to go deep and crash at T11, it's going to happen in about 5 seconds' time.
I don't think that would be something that he's going to do, given that he now has a 45 second.
He's got plenty of... Let's go for a fastest lap, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
He's taking it easy.
I mean, where did the superlatives end? I mean, Thomas McMillan early on looked like he had this race under control, but Sean Allen, apart from one little brush with the wall, and we think, I mean, not to make excuses for a driver, we think that might have had something to do with switching to the ZB. That's the only error we've seen him make. Everyone else has made much bigger ones, and Sean Allen is going to come home and win this race by 45 seconds over the championship leader, Kurt Stenberg, and put himself back in contention for the championship.
Absolutely, that is a dominant display. After Thomas McMillan dropped out, it's been basically the Sean Allen show. He's been consistent and clean, apart from that one moment, as we said, where he clipped the wall. It's been a masterclass around this tricky circuit, and he's getting rid of the rest of his rubber, giving himself a nice light car
And
along
some
with his
formation running
teammate
here, yeah.
Brody Steen.
Oh, that's a beautiful shot there with the two Race on Oz drivers there. Zach Baker
Smoking up a storm.
Brody Steen having finished 5th ahead of Zach Baker in 6th place. And where is Kurt Stenberg? There he is,
crossing the line.
coming across the line to finish 2nd. That's a good result though for his championship. I think he'll be happy with
Being
that.
quite unsighted going through the first couple of corners here. There's this enormous pile of smoke.
That's a Days of Thunder moment. Yep.
And
Yeah.
he-
Look, very reminiscent of what happened,
first
and
corner.
that's what I was expecting to happen when Kurt Stenberg got up the inside. It was the car on the outside that spun on that occasion, completely inconsequential there, but it was Kurt Stenberg who spun on the opening lap at that point, being the car on the inside squeezed by, I believe it was the Race on Oz car on the outside.
It was. Thomas Paul in the chat just saying, "Can't believe my engine blew." Yeah, that is a shame. You would have been, if you'd continued in that position, you would have been up in the podium spots. But
there's a lot of what
them's
could
the
have
breaks.
beens tonight, aren't there?
I'm looking at 7 of them on the DNF board.
There's a lot of stories.
Jack Handel, Jake Maloney, Colin Warwick, Thomas McMillan, Steve Birchall, Thomas Paul, and Termo. All unfortunately.
Well, a lot of
DNF'd.
them, a lot of those drivers did have a good prospect for a good result tonight. You know, Colin Warwick was qualified pretty well, but had that shifter issue and then got dropped. Jake Maloney had the issue with getting dropped as well. Thomas McMillan leading by 15 seconds and then dropping out. But
Ridiculous.
7 cars finished, and we did expect this race to be attritional, and well, to finish first you must finish. It is a very overused adage, but certainly it serves as paradise.
Nevertheless true.
Very much so. So we're still watching Sean Allen come in on his victory lap. We're starting to have some drivers populate the Discord server for a bit of a chat afterwards. Sean Allen is certainly enjoying this moment, collecting full 300 points, and puts himself in a very good position in the championship. Still Kurt Stenberg leading quite comfortably, of course, and Kurt Stenberg, I believe, will be leading the enduro points as well after that result. Certainly a bit of a tiebreaker with Jake Maloney.
Yeah, definitely. Jake Maloney with that unfortunate DNF. It's a shame for him as they line up there in front of the podium spot. Be a good shot if we were in front of the cars. It's just it's an awkward spot for the camera to be placed. Regardless, Drew Reynolds in the chat. Well done, Sean Allen. Completely agree with you. And Brenton just saying, great call as always, guys, and great racing. Thank you very much, Foley. I'll talk to you tomorrow night, and keep the lube ready.
Appreciate that. Madbird, you've got second place man Kurt Stenberg with you.
I do indeed. So, Kurt, a bit of an up and down race for you after the start. Just talk us through it, mate. That having to fight your way back up from 14th.
Yeah, mate. Silly mistake there at the start. Sean got a better start than me, and he broke way later than me into the chicane, and then I thought I wanted to be in front of him, so I had a bit of a dive, and it didn't pull off, and I hit the inside wall, and I spun, and had a bit of a comeback there to come back through everyone. A few people decided to remove themselves from the race or have accidents as I was coming through, which made it a fair bit easier. And then got within 4 seconds of Sean, and he made a mistake. I found out in the pit stop phase, and I ended up in front of him. And should have had the race sewn up then. But then I decided that because I wasn't pushing to try and catch him anymore, that I decided I'd make a mistake and roll my car for some unknown reason.
We did say that you probably have to push because it's the sort of track you need to constantly be concentrating on, and the second that you sort of ease off a little bit, you little mistakes creep in. Is that what happened through that back chicane there where you ended up on your roof?
Yeah, man. If you get out of a rhythm at this place, you just start to make errors, and that's what happened to me. I was pushing hard to try and catch him, and then thought, oh no, I just need to maintain the gap now. I could see that he was pushing to try and get back to me. So I thought, oh yep, we'll drive it a bit easier, and yeah, I haven't taken the corner as much as I was. I've taken the curb slightly wrong to before because I've been conservative, and yeah, I've hit it, and I've hit the outside wall and rolled, so yeah.
It's a damn shame, but still a solid second place finish for yourself, so very well done there, Kurt. Or O'Kurt, I believe, as I heard you introduce yourself on the stream the other night.
It wasn't him.
Stairs, I think you've got race winner Sean Allen.
I do. Sean Allen, congratulations. Adding to your tally of wins from all the way back in Perth, where you won your first 2 races. You must be very, very pleased to add to that with a great win tonight.
Yeah, again, like those race wins, I feel kind of lucky with that. With McMillan disappearing, I don't know what happened to him, and then Kurt's mistakes. I was going as hard as I could. I was pretty well trashed through that middle sector, so I was trying to be as consistent as possible. But yeah, I'm pretty stoked to have another win.
Well, it is one of those tracks that rewards the consistency, so it was a good strategy to have. Just the one major mistake that we saw you make with tagging the inside wall, I believe it was turn 11, and we've noticed you switched to a different car. Was that something that perhaps made it a little bit tricky, not quite what you're used to in previous races?
Oh, I'm using the same car as before. It's just Bathurst was the different one what we used than this one.
Right.
But they drive the same anyway. I just made a balls up, really. I don't know what I was doing. I sort of lost focus on that corner. I was more focused on the next corner, I think, and yeah, just tagged inside and spun out, and that's what gave Stenny that lead after the pit.
And with Jake Maloney retiring from that race, I believe, just with the provisional mathematics, that puts you up into second in the championship, so well done on that.
Yeah, thanks, mate. It's second is still a fair while from Kurt, I think.
Well, we'll see. Anything can happen. Once again, fantastic result from you. And to all of our podium sitters, I don't believe we have had the pleasure of David Nenadich's company for third place, but congratulations to him if he is watching. Well, Madbird, that just about does it for us tonight. Do join us in 1 week's time for the final part of the Automobilista Supercars Enduro Cup from Sandown, as Michael Zalavari will be joining me in commentary for that one. As Madbird, you'll be heading off for some much-needed R&R, although I don't know how relaxing your holiday destination will be.
Yeah, off to Hong Kong for a week and a half. Hopefully I don't get tear gassed and end up in a Chinese prison. So, but I'll very much be looking forward to it. I'll probably see if I can swing the night off from Mel, so I can watch the stream from our Airbnb, and I'll look forward to coming back the day after I return. I'm hopping back in the box for the season closer at Newcastle, so very much looking forward to being back for that one, Stairs.
Absolutely. Well, safe travels to you and Mel, and we'll see you then. In the meantime, if 1 week is too long for your next fix of sim racing, do tune in tomorrow night at 8:20 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time for round 2 of the Apex Rear Wing 4 Decades of Imola, as we detailed earlier in the broadcast, running in 1988 Formula 1 cars tomorrow. So all the details of that will be on our Facebook page. That's all from us tonight. Thank you very much indeed for watching. Bye for now.
See you later.